Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the City Council to conduct a workshop for Thursday, May 19th, 2016. The time is 2 p.m. Before we start, if I could just point out to all the council members that Council's quarterly expense report with the period ending March 31st is in your packet in front of you. Just take a look at that when you have a moment. And first item on the agenda is to discuss as may be needed regular meeting agenda items for the meeting posted for Thursday, May 19th, 2016. Anybody have anything on there? I know that we've got the second quarter financials. Do you have anything for us on that, or just?
Yes, sir. I have a short presentation, if that's okay.
Of course it is. Sounds, I mean, we're, meeting in the council chamber. Everything seems so
Formal?
formal and stuff, Ms. Bernard. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to present the second quarter financial statements for the 6 months ended March 31st, 2016. At this point, the year, we're 50% complete through the year. Next slide, please. Starting out with general fund revenues, total revenues are at $41.4 million of a budget of $67.2 million. That's at 62%. Next slide, please. Looking at our revenues by major source, the total revenue budget again is $67.2 million. The major.
That's weird.
Oh man. Something happened to my category names, but the big red piece of the pie is sales tax. Makes up about 30.23% of the total revenues of the general fund. The blue slice is property taxes, and it makes up about 19.2% of the total revenues. And solid waste is about 16.79%. I'd like to go over a few highlights on the property tax and sales tax. Next slide, please. And this is, I'm actually moving 1 month forward into April 30th, 2016. Sales tax is more than budget by 2.84%, or $341,000. That does include $188,000 prior period audit collection, and there's 5 months remaining in the fiscal year. Next slide. Looking at our sales tax, this goes back to October of 2009. It just shows from month to month the increase or decrease compared to the previous year. You'll look in red is our FY 2016. We started out the year, of course, the red bar that dips way down, that is comparing to the previous year when we had a huge audit collection, which is the tall green bar. But we started the year out kind of sluggish in our sales tax, but we have the last 3 months have reported good increases and good gains. And if you look at the next slide, it compares the city of Temple to other cities in our region and also to statewide cities. Oh, wait for him to get his computer going there.
Yep, there we go.
The new guy.
Remedial.
As you see the sales tax regional comparison, Georgetown is to the far left, shows a increase a little bit over 8%. Copperscove to the far right with a decrease, and Temple is the green bar that shows the increase slightly over 6% for the year. Next slide, please. Other revenue highlights, ad valorem taxes. They are levied on October 1st. They become delinquent February 1st. And collections as a percent of levy through March 31st is 97.23%. That is slightly higher than the previous 3 years. Next slide. Moving into general fund expenditures, at $33.9 million, budget's $71.2 million, and they're at 48%. Personnel is at 48%, operations at 40%, and capital at 70%. Of course, we with our capital, we do try to order a lot of that in the fall, so it will show percentage-wise above where we are. Next slide, please. Another expenditure highlight just to show our weekly fuel pricing. The orange and green bars are our budget for diesel and unleaded. As you see, the red and blue bars, week after week, we're way below our budget in fuel pricing or fuel cost. Next slide, please. Just some expenditures to watch throughout the rest of the fiscal year with 6 months remaining. We will need to watch our step-up pay, and that's where when an employee steps up into a higher position, steps up and gets step-up pay for performing the duties of that position. We're slightly over budget there. We have a city manager has authorized several overhires in the police and fire department because it takes a long time to get when someone retires or leaves, it takes a while to get them on the street and in the fire trucks. And we have had several retirements in this year, and also separation pay due to several long-term employees retiring. And then we also have an economic development agreement that's incentive-based and is based on sales tax, and the revenue is exceeding that projection, so we could increase the expenditure related to that incentive agreement also. Next slide. General fund forecast. We're projecting revenues right at 100%, and I'll show you in the next few slides. That is kind of skewed by our airport cost of goods sold and airport pricing. Expenditures projecting to end the year at 97%, and that would be an excess, you net those together, of about $1.9 million. This slide just shows revenues that are more or less than budget. To the far left, we show just several revenue accounts combined together, slightly less than $400,000 over budget. We're showing our sales tax to be a little less than $400,000 more than budget. Fines and fees a little less than $200,000. And to the far right, again, as I told you, airport. Our budget for airport revenue and airport expenditures were based on a higher price per gallon. Our fuel is actually showing profit greater than budget, but when you look at the price per gallon on what we budgeted for revenue and expenses, you see the revenues are way under budget and the expenditures also under budget. We did have, at the airport, if you'll back up one slide, we did have our hangars, those two AMCOM hangars were vacated in the middle of the year. Weren't expecting that at the end of the year last year when the budget was adopted, and that is will come in about $400,000 less than budget. Next slide. Looking at expenditures that are less than budget, again you see the airport cost of goods sold far left. Hiring lag, that's very common. So we budget salaries at 100%, and we do have hiring lag. Our fuel budget will be under budget, a little less than $400,000, and then we have the other miscellaneous revenues that will be under budget. Fund balance, if you take the fund balance that is assigned for capital projects unallocated as of March 31 was at $1.9 million. You add the revenues that are more than budget, expenditures that are less than budget, that total about $1.9 million. You add those together. And you reduce it by the TEDC matrix funding that is projected for FY17. We're estimating that about $400,000, using about $2 million in the FY 2017 budget for capital, and then our rainy day fund adjustment, technology replacement, it would bring that balance to approximately $855,000. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Sorry.
This is showing the use of fund balance for adopted a budget. It shows it over the past 10 years. Look in the left-hand column, supplement to the budget. You can see what it's been over the past 10 years. Anywhere from 1.4 million to a high of 3.3 million. The next column is what this fund balance is assigned for capital projects, what it begins the year at. And right now we're projecting that at about $855,000. That's lower than it's been in the last 10 years. But remember too, this is 6 months into the year and we're projecting out through the next 6 months.
Explain that supplement to budget real quickly.
It's
I
our
do this once a quarter. So.
Okay. It's our practice to estimate revenues low and expenditures high, and consistently, year after year, revenues exceed budget, expenditures are less than budget. And it is your policy that we have a method of rolling that back into the budget process, and there's 4 allowed uses by policy of those monies, and it's to supplement the budget through capital equipment purchase, grant matches, CIS funding, and TDC matrix funding. So, and there are some other approved source or uses that y'all have had throughout the year, but that's the 4 common policy uses that y'all approved. As you remember, some of you before, Councilmember Snyder, I think, had pointed it out a few years ago when that at the 6-month projection, that amount was about $900,000. Typically, we're about $1 million conservative on that estimate as of today.
Okay.
But we'll continue to, update you quarter by quarter of where that number is. And usually with the adopted budget too, that's the amount during the budget process on the far left column, the 2.4 million. That's included in the budget adoption, but then throughout the year it's used for those other uses also. Only if approved by council though. Does that explain that? Okay. Next slide, please. Moving on into the water and sewer fund revenues. Total operating revenues are at 44%. Again, we have the summer months is when we sell more water. Next slide. Water and sewer fund expenditures or expenses are at 45% of budget. The hotel motel tax fund revenues are at 48% of budget. Expenditures for the hotel motel fund are at 40%. Drainage fees, we have commercial and residential drainage fees, and interest and other total revenues for that fund are at 53%. Expenditures are at 66%. And again, this is a fund we had some major capital purchases of equipment to use in the drainage systems. Those were ordered at the beginning of the year, and that is why they're at 94%. Our investment chart, this is our target for average 3-month Treasury bill rate. You see the small bump in December, the Fed raised Fed funds rate 25 basis points. Next slide. Total investments for the city as of March 31st were $187.5 million. And this is a chart that shows the entity allocation based on carrying value, how all those funds are invested. Next slide shows that same investment portfolio of how the fund allocation As you'll see, 31% or about $58 million in the orange slice is made up of bond proceeds. There are parks bonds that are issued, TCIP bonds, and some reinvestment zone bonds, or the 9% yellow slice. Again, that 91-day T-bill rate is what our target is. It's at 22 basis points, and the city's portfolio is actually earning about 41 basis points. That's 0.41 of 1%. Strategic investment zones, this is our SIZ dollars. That program started in 2008, and the chart shows the allocation to that funding. It totals $808,000 since the inception of the program. $658,000 is either committed, encumbered, or pending, and it leaves the remaining funds as of December 31 at $149,000. Capital improvement program by funding source. As of March 31, there was a total of $251.5 million worth of capital improvements that were programmed within the city. This pie shows how those improvements are being funded. We still show 23% of them through the reinvestment zone. We still show the Northwest Loop project on there funded. It's 18.39%, and that will continue to show on this chart until that project's completely closed out within the fiscal year. Next slide shows that same capital improvement program by project type. About 40% of that streets or related facilities, about 23% reinvestment zone projects, about 19% water and sewer facilities, and the 11% is the parks and recreation. And that concludes the second quarter financials for the period ending 3/31/2016, and I'd be happy to address any questions you have.
Can I ask a random question about something that was a long time ago in the presentation? The CNG refilling station, we getting any public use out of that?
Very little.
Okay.
With the, since fuel prices have plummeted, it's not near as advantageous to use the CNG. It doesn't, I think private vehicles, it's the capital recovery's doesn't quite work right now.
I had a question from somebody a couple of weeks ago that said that they had a CNG vehicle, but they can't drive it because there's nowhere to fill it up. And I said, actually, there is. And I was just curious if it is widely known.
Brittany, I think Ashley could better answer that question, or Nicole, or do you know if we're advertising it or encouraging it right now?
There are several sites that are pretty if you have a CNG vehicle, you're aware of the websites to go check for where the stations are and what the price is, and we're on all those sites. Beyond that, we haven't done a lot of advertising.
That's fine. Had I not seen that,
Okay.
I probably would have forgotten to ask for another 2 or 3 months. So, any other questions? Great. Thanks, Tracy. And do you all need to restart? Do we need to be quiet while you do? That's real fun. That's really funny, Brent. Could we take how long do you need? About 5 minutes. Everybody, it's been a long 19 minutes. If we could take a 5-minute break. And item 2 on the agenda is to discuss the city's strategic plan to include the FY 2016-2017 budget process and calendar, and various strategic and budget-related policy issues to include, but not limited to, the receiving the presentations from agencies requesting community enhancement grant funding by the following, and I'll wait to read all of those in as they come in, but I know Mr. Graham wanted to say a few things about the budget.
Yes, I do. appreciate, first of all, we talked about the fact that this budget process feels like it's a year-round process, and it is probably about a 7 or 8 month process at least, and we're well into it. I'd like to kind of cover these issues today, just kind of remind you of what's guiding this process for us, our mission, vision, kind of show you the calendar where we are, and we're about halfway through it, that process. Talk about our rules of engagement, which are kind of our fence post, if you will, for what's sort of guiding our decision tree in terms of what we recommend to you. Then, while it's still fairly early in the process, we're about a month away from submitting a budget to you. I'd like to spend a few minutes and just kind of highlight a few major budget issues. Certainly not everything, I'm not going to talk about every department, but some of the major ones. And then we'll give you an introduction to the presentations on the PSAs and community enhancement grants. So thank you. And appreciate the fact that we've got a great team. Tracy and Jennifer from the finance department work with us, and Brent and myself are kind of the team that begins this process and meets with each of the department heads to consider their requests, and appreciate their hard work to get this point. This is kind of our strategic plan and a summary of that, and our vision, mission statement. Won't read all those things, but those principles and sort of guide us in what we recommend to you each year. Our calendar, again, this first page, we began this process back in February with a meeting with all the departments and divisions of the city. We followed that up with a retreat with the council towards the end of February, which we kind of outlined a few issues and got some feedback from you. And then you can see the other things we've been doing through this process, including, the submission by departments of their request and a series of one-on-one meetings with departments, which takes us to the next page. And you can see where we are today. You're receiving a very quick overview from me of where we are today in the process, and then you'll receive presentations from many of the agencies that are requesting funding through our Community Enhancement Grant, or PSA, program. And you can see, just going forward, just two highlights are that in June 24th is the date this year that I will submit a budget to you through the City Secretary's office. Then in July and August, we'll have an opportunity to have additional workshops and feedback from the council. Those are the ones we know about at this point. We have the potential, certainly, as we have in past years, if there are particular issues that you wish to spend more time on, we can find some additional time as well. And then with a goal at that last meeting, or last Thursday in August, of adopting the budget and setting the tax rate. So that's our schedule. Rules of engagement that I'm working on are similar to what they've been in the past, which we're trying to maintain or improve the services we provide and the level of service we provide, preserve, protect, and defend or develop our workforce, grow our tax base and economy, which is really what enables us to do all the things we do by expanding our tax base. And finally, to make sure that we're, in doing so, that we're maintaining the investment of public funds in our facilities and infrastructure. And we're trying to do all of that within the constraints of being fiscally responsible and sound. So again, not all of the budget issues that we're looking at in this process, but just kind of hitting some of the highlights. And again, we mentioned some of these back in February at our retreat with you, but solid waste routes and capital, we have some significant requests in solid waste for both replacement trucks for our solid waste, and also a request for a additional route which would involve another truck and driver just remind you, I think you realize that this is our year that we look at general government employees, so we're also at a point in our time where we're doing a compensation study to look at all of our classifications, both an external look and internal look on those. That process is underway. And just remind you that one element that we have for general government employees is that we have a pay for performance element in that, and we've tweaked that in recent years, and we think that works very well. Parks and Recreation, just a highlight or something to keep in mind is, as you know, when voters approved our parks bond, the $27 million package, we have hit the ground running and trying to deliver those parks items on schedule, under budget. But there are operating costs associated with that, and we estimate the cost for 2017 at just less than $500,000. So that's something we're going to have to recognize in the budget. East Temple Community Development, and I guess I would add downtown to that, remains a focus, and so there are elements of the budget, both in our TCIP, utility CIP, but also our incentive efforts, Jeff Hamilton, our CIS corridors, downtown, and some of our other areas, Transform Temple, are all remaining focus or elements of our budget. Recycling, I've mentioned this to you. We've had our curbside residential recycling for a number of years. We have a partner that we've been working with, Balcones. That remains a program where that's challenging in some ways. I think our citizens really appreciate that. The market is very volatile. We've been working with Balcones, and we've just received a proposal from them. They have the option under that agreement of opting out of the agreement if it isn't working for them. They've indicated they wish to stay with that program, but we probably are looking for some kind of fee increase for that as part of our solid waste fee. And finally, I'll spend some time talking about the police department. So,
Just
sure.
out of curiosity, the current fee for recycling?
The current fee, it's included as a residential customer in your bill. We did when we adopted.
Minimal, wasn't it?
Yeah, we added at that time like 38 cents or so just to cover the cost of those containers, but it's just included as part of your service. So you get once a week solid waste collection and once a week curbside residential. So we absorb that. So we're probably looking for some adjustment in that.
So the original 38 cents was for
Containers.
containers, right? So now they're paid for, just leave the fee in place?
Yes, I think.
What's the strategy?
I think the strategy is you have to periodically replace those containers.
So we're just going to do that with that 38 cents?
Well,
Or an
that will
increase
help to
on
fund
that.
that. But,
Okay. I
but
think
in addition, there's some additional operating costs associated with it. The market is not as strong as it could be for those materials. Any other fee adjustment we're doing is just to improve our relationship so they can afford to continue to operate under our contract.
Which would mean paying Balcones something.
Yes.
Right now,
Right now, they're paying us
they're paying us something,
something, yeah.
small amount.
And also going back to what you were asking about the 38 cents, I think that when we agreed to that, when we started the program, it was to perpetuate itself so
Sure.
that what's the life on a recycling can, like 10 years? So then we would have kind of a kitty built up to where we could replace those as we needed to.
Adding new customers or replacing as we go.
But so right now, the current arrangement with Balcones is there is a small revenue stream coming back to us.
Very small, yeah.
If, with a new agreement, it very well could switch and there's a stream going back to them from us.
Could be.
Is that right?
Could be.
Okay.
And I think, I don't know if I've got a separate slide about that, but when we went out for RFPs a few years ago, we received several proposals, and all the other companies that proposed had us paying them to accept those. Balcones was the only one at that time that proposed to pay us anything. It's not a lot of revenue, and Tracy could tell us how much it is, but in part, it was based on their belief at that time that they were going to get a large volume from Clean, because Clean was getting ready to do that, and they had been selected as the most qualified firm over there, and for a couple of reasons, Clean did not go ahead with that, so they're not really getting the volume, and like a lot of things, solid waste included, it is a volume business. As you increase your volume, that incremental cost goes down, and so they've struggled. And then the market for those materials that they collect from us and sell has been kind of soft. So we're still talking about it. I don't have numbers for you today, but it's likely that part of our budget submission will be some adjustment in that fee, in our solid waste fee, that includes covering the cost of recycling. We currently have 11 residential solid waste routes serving approximately 23,000 customers. We added a route last year. Even at that time, there was some. I think their request initially was for 2, and we added 1. We're adding about 550 new houses every year, so that's adding to those routes. There are some industry standards for how many houses you would typically find on a route that allows for the efficient operation of collecting that, bringing it to the landfill, emptying the truck, doing all of that. They also, in their request this year, have 2 of their large trucks that are scheduled this year for replacement. Compensation study, I touched on this a moment ago, but as you know, we really have 3 different pay plans. One is general government, that includes both our salaried or exempt employees and non-exempt. We have civil service, police and fire, which we do every other year, and we did last year. And then you have a pay plan for your council appointees, year 5. By practice, this is the year that we look at general government. In addition to that, next slide, we are this year proposing and have gone out for a compensation study. The last time we did that, it was 2008. So it's been at least 8 years, and we only partially implemented that in 2013. And if you think about the economy in 2009-10, that was a time that most cities were, revenues were pretty flat. Those were challenging times, so we were only able to partially implement it in 2013. We have, as I said, gone out for RFPs. We will bring you something, anticipating it on the June 2nd agenda, to recommend a consultant to do that. And we expect that plan to be completed this fall. And in this budget that I will propose, we will have some placeholder in that budget for an adjustment of our pay plan. And again, normally in the absence of this comprehensive compensation study, we would just do a survey of our peer cities, and we have some adjustment internally for market. This is just a much more elaborate process. But a second element of that is that we do have a pay-for-performance system, and last year we tweaked that a little bit. We added 2 tiers to that, and we think that worked pretty well, so there will be some element of that as well. So, Parks and Recreation, just again, a couple of highlights. We mentioned we're obviously moving forward with building out the parks projects that were approved by voters. Been very pleased with the work that Kevin and his folks have been doing, and our consultants. You can see a list of some of those facilities that are coming online that will impact our 17 budget. And we estimate that cost, operating and maintenance cost, of close to $500,000. I want to also remind you that we have 2 facilities that we try to make self-sustaining. That's our goal. That's a challenging goal, but one is Salmon's golf course, the links, and the Summit Recreation Center. So we will be, as part of that is certainly our goal. And we will advise you as we submit our budget how we're doing in that and what some of the challenges are. East Temple Community Development, again, continuing to leverage our CDBG funds to provide community development programming in East Temple, neighborhood revitalization, our home improvement program, financial inclusion program. A large part last year, if you remember, we did a calculation of just how many dollars we're spending in East Temple, either directly or indirectly, and that continues to be a major part of our effort. And if you, and I know in the last couple months we've had presentations from Nicole about our TCIP and utility CIP, of course, what I would call East and North Temple, some of the older parts of our community are a major part of that effort to replace older lines. Jeff Hamilton Investment Zone, we're looking at both incentives in there that you've approved, but also the possibility of extending some utilities in that area where they don't currently exist. Downtown remains a focus, and a big part of that is Transform Temple Team in Beaver Creek, and we've had very good reports from that, and I think we've got a downtown group we're working with now, and I think they're quite pleased with the effort, and I hope you are too. I think downtown hasn't looked as good as it looks in a very long time, so that will remain a focus, and there are elements of our budget that will reflect those projects. Recycling, I think I've probably covered most of this already, but I do see us, with the proposal we've seen from them, probably having to come back to you. It will be in the form of an adjustment of our residential rates for solid waste, because that's where we collect revenue that supports that program. Sorry, one other point I want to touch on that last bullet. In doing that, I think we need to continue to stress public education and commercial education and make sure that that both on a residential side that people know about our program. One of our issues with Balcones is that we still have a fairly high level of contamination, and contamination is, as it sounds, that in the loads of recyclable materials that we pick up and then get transported to Austin and have to be separated, we still have a high percentage of contamination, over 20%, and our goal in our contract, I think, is more like 10 to 12%, and so that's an education effort that we need to really continue to work on, but also developing our commercial volume. From the beginning with Balcones and other companies that have expressed an interest, the real high volumes of recyclables are on the commercial side, commercial industrial. It tends to be much more predictable. It tends to be cleaner and consistent, and so we think that's an area that we can help improve their situation and our situation by developing the commercial side of that business, which can kind of help support this residential side as well. So that's something that we've talked to Nicole and Lisa about, is really challenge them to do everything we can to increase that volume and reduce the contamination and help this operation. So, police department, we spent quite a bit of time at our retreat talking about this. Just to kind of remind you, last year we deferred some personnel requests that we had from the police department. We did so for a couple of reasons. That time, the budgets were submitted. Gary Smith had already turned in his retirement paperwork. I had commissioned an assessment of our police department, which was done. We were in the process of hiring a new police chief. We knew that in hiring him, he would not only look at this outside assessment, but do his own assessment. So we deferred some of those decisions. I think Gary last year had requested, I believe, 7 police officers at that time. So New chief has hit the ground running. He's done, again, his own assessment. He's identified some needs both on management side, supervision in the criminal or CID division. He's talked about the need for what he's termed a proactive enforcement squad to handle special operations in the community. His request includes 13 new positions. Again, a good part of that is on supervision, which is, again, what the assessment showed is one of the areas we were lacking, is a little bit light in terms of supervision. So he's asking for 2 lieutenants, 3 sergeants, and 8 additional police officers. And just a comment, I think it's going to be real challenging to do all that. And again, those are just some highlights. There are we have requests from all the departments we've been missing with, and this is kind of a snapshot. And if you total up all of the requests from all of the departments, it's in excess of $17 million of requests from departments. Tying into what Tracy said earlier, there's some elements of every budget request that we're able to fund with year-end fund balance, the money that we'll have at the end of the year. We expect to fund approximately $2.8 million of that through the year-end fund balance, capital equipment, and we also fund the TDC matrix allocation through there. But if you look at that, that still leaves us with request of about almost $14.5 million. At this point, again, very preliminary numbers from the appraisal district and our finance department about what we think sales and property tax, our 2 major revenue sources, will be. It looks like we might have $900,000 to $1 million of new money. Even after we scrub everything out of this year's budget, and I've talked to you about that, we go through our current year budget, we look at what one-time expenditures that aren't reoccurring in each budget. Departments worked very hard this year to make sure they scrub themselves, we scrub it. But when you do that, and then you also add back in things that are new expenditures, like the parks operating costs and different things, other civil service, a full year of those increases and things. We're starting this process that we're having to whittle down. We've got a shortfall of probably over $13 million. That sounds terrible, but that is actually pretty common. You always have more requests than you have available funds, and it just means that we're going to have to work very hard in this. We're not going to be able to fund everything that is requested. Our current tax rate, as you know, is almost 63 cents, 62.98 cents per $100 of valuation. That includes about 5 cents that you approved last year when voters approved the Parks bond issue. As you know, the tax rate increase for TCIP that's scheduled for this year has been programmed. We've sold that debt. We need to add 3.5 cents to the tax rate to support that INS to pay for that debt for this year. My plan at this point is to submit a budget that is balanced, that incorporates that 3.5 cent that we've anticipated when we sold that debt, but beyond that can live within funds using some of the fund balance that Tracy talked about a minute ago that we use for vehicles and other things. But beyond that, that it would be a balanced budget with no additional tax increase beyond that 3.5 cents unless you direct me otherwise. But just so you know, and just how this works, based on our current, our best guess as to total taxable property, an additional 0.5 cent sales tax beyond that 3.5 cents would raise about 178, and you can double that for a cent to about 357 or 360,000. So again, kind of in summation, I will be submitting a budget to you at the end of June. My plan is to bring a budget that includes that 3.5 cents, but will be balanced beyond that. I'm not going to propose a tax increase beyond that unless I get some indication from you, you're willing to look at that, and we're going to work really hard to work within those parameters. And while it sounds like a lot, it's typical, and overall, things are going very well. It's just this, this is one of those years we have some tough decisions to make. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Council, any questions? If I could just say a couple of things.
Sure.
That, when the majority of this council set out a few years ago and expanded the TCIP project, we realized that this was something that was going to be a far greater expense if we didn't address it than if we just went ahead and bit the bullet, and knowing that this 3.5 cents would be coming up in the next 3 years. Yeah, I think we accepted that because I think that we realized that we had a responsibility to our infrastructure, and the fact that we're a growing city just means that there's more need for infrastructure and more need for things throughout the community. I don't, I can't speak for the rest of the council, but I think it's important not to go above that this year, because that is while we have been talking about it consistently for 3.5 years, it still is a big jump, and it's something that we didn't take lightly when the majority of us decided on it 3 years ago. As far as tightening our belts, I think that because it's one of those things, and you and I have talked about it, that because we are in such good shape, this is a good problem to have. But at the same time, these are growing pains that any growing community faces, and we just have to be as responsible as we've always been with our money. And as you and I have talked before, that if there is if there are some things that are either one-time expenditures or things that we similar to the transformation team that we could pay for out of the reinvestment zone, I think that it would be a good idea to look at those options, and if we need to divert some of their planning in order to fill some of our short-term needs, then I think that there's really no better of a way to reinvest in the community. So I just wanted to say that again and put that out there. Anybody else? Okay. Well, at this time, I'll go ahead and start with the community enhancement grant funding.
Mayor, I think I do have an introduction
Sure.
for that, particularly for our new council member.
I just got so excited, everybody was coming in.
And, well, we're on schedule, so just want to kind of give you a quick overview of what this program is about and different sources of funding. So, what is the Community Enhancement Grant? That we've referred to them in the past as PSA grants, a grant made to an outside agency outside the city. Organization that helps the city leverage service delivery and funding, typically in one of these areas: transportation, social services, economic development, leisure services, and tourism. Usually these are nonprofit corporations. Sources of funding, really two different sources. One is the general fund for some of those, for community enhancement grants. In some cases, depending on how they're being used, we have the ability to use or leverage hotel motel funds, but those are restricted, and there's a very specific set of rules under state law for how we can use our hotel motel tax, and we have to be very careful about that. Our public service agency grants, on the other hand, we for the most part we rely on CDBG funds for that, and they can again, there's a set of rules on how we can use those for certain qualified public services have to go through a process, public hearings, and different things that are take place at different times. I will say to our newest council member, CDBG funds, unfortunately, for a community our size, or for probably all size cities, over the years, the available funding through that program has continued to shrink. So while we've been able to do good things with those, as the amount of money has shrunk over the years, it gets more and more challenging to find a project or two that makes sense to make an impact on our community. And for this year, in 2017, we've received requests of almost $1 million, $947,000 in requests from funding for 28 organizations. We have an open application process. The presentations are made here to the council. We do this every year, and the city manager. It's not required that these agencies come in, but if they're requesting over $25,000, they're required to do a presentation. And after you receive these presentations, our process has been over the years that we review those and I make a recommendation through the budget. And I will say that it's not me alone. In fact, I think we started last year. We actually have a team of folks who look at those and make a recommendation as part of our budget. And certainly after we submit that in our budget, you have the opportunity to revise or modify those requests. So the guidelines that we've given folks are that we've asked them to provide certain information that's listed here, an overview of the organization, identify the program that they're wanting to fund and the services that'll be provided, the objectives, and then also, importantly, we ask them to talk about what happens to those services or their organization if the funding is not provided by the city. Do they have alternatives, that kind of thing. So that's enough to get you started. Any questions or comments? Okay.
First folks that we have up for the Central Texas 4C. Anybody want another water?
Sure.
No, it's in the middle, on the right.
This one.
Yep.
Oh, good. I get to be the guinea pig. We ready?
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Janelle Frazier. I'm the Executive Director of Central Texas 4C. We administer the Head Start program in Bell County and part of Coryell County. We have seven cities. Temple is one of them. What's interesting is that out of the seven, 58% of our services come to Temple. And part of that is because the city has always supported education and early childhood education, which is what we're in the business of doing. Just to give you a little bit of history, I think I'm supposed to be brilliant and brief. I hope I've got the brief down. Don't know about the other part, but we've been around for over 40 years. We started out as a preschool program for 3 to 5-year-olds, and in 2002 we wrote a grant for the 0 to 3 program. We do believe in a cradle to college pipeline of education, especially for low income people. Families have to be at 100% of poverty to join what we do as partners, and we have received national and international recognition for the high quality here. You may not be aware of that, but all of our centers are NAEYC accredited, and that's the National Association for the Education of Young Children. That is a benchmark for high quality nationally, and we were, for the last 2 years, finalist for HEB's Excellence in Education Award in the statewide area. So we think we are something that Temple can be proud of because we're proud of Temple. And we're also proud of our staff. And so when we're looking at what Head Start is and where we are, it's, for those of you that are not familiar with Head Start, it started in the 60s under LBJ as part of the War on Poverty. And the money comes directly to the local from the federal, which is kind of rare and kind of special, except that we are very much at the whims of whoever's got the purse strings in Washington. Sometimes it's very favorable to early childhood programs, and sometimes it isn't. During the sequestration, for instance, we lost $750,000 out of our budget. And then when they put it back, they expected us to just be able to get right back in those facilities we had to abandon. And of course, you know it doesn't work that way. So we keep trying to teach the feds what they need to know about supporting what we do. We serve last year we served 744 children altogether. 432 of them were in Temple. And these are the things that we do: education, health, mental health, nutrition, dental health. If a kid can't eat, he can't learn, so we pay for his dental expenses if Medicaid doesn't pick it up. We do services for children with disabilities. 10% of our clients have to be children with diagnosed disabilities. And certainly family support systems, because if you're not bringing the family along with what we know about brain development in young children and how to accelerate their developmental levels, then we're missing the point, because teachers are teachers, but parents are the child's primary teacher. So we're educating parents as well as the children. We're also educating the communities. So I'd like, just what does education of young children look like? A lot of people think you've got to educate them that young. Yeah, we do. And the younger, the better. For instance, in some of our centers, you'll see children playing, and you'll think, well, they're just playing. Well, if it's correctly structured play, and it is play that is tied to language and reinforcement, then social emotional skills, language skills, all of those things that are predictors of success later. But, tummy time and being in front of a mirror, if you're narrating to the child what they're doing, their language is learning. There's no tomorrow with early childhood. During the first 3 years, there are between 700 and 1,000 new neural connections in a baby's brain every second. And we have 1,000 days to get them ready for pre-K, the 3 to 5 year old pre-K program. So there's an awful lot that we do besides babysit. One of the things that we do is we help children learn creative problem solving. Another thing that we target are pregnant teens or teen parents in high school. The young man on the left he had dropped out of school so his young wife could finish and he could stay home with the baby, but then they put the baby in early Head Start, and he and his wife are both walking in June. And the little girl on the right with the other little girl is one of our Temple graduates. We also target homeless children. They are categorically eligible for Head Start. Last year, of the 25 of the 26 homeless families that were referred to us secured housing. One is still working toward a down payment, but is still in our program. Children with disabilities, I said we target. This little fella came to us and couldn't walk, but by the time he was in pre-K, he was running and talking and doing many things. We had a child come to us at 11 months of age, not this child, but another, came to our Salisbury Center here in Temple at 45% of development. And after being in our program for 15 months, that child tested out, or assessed, we don't test them, we assess them, at 95% of developmental level. So it changed that child's direct trajectory, and we can make several different trajectory changes with parents when we get them financially secure. Jobs is one of my major things that I'm worried about right now because of the high cost of the health benefits for our staff. We are a large employer, so we don't have the right to say, well, we just won't do the insurance. They can go to the marketplace and get it. We have to provide it. And it looks like it's going to be between $8,000 and $10,000 more per month than we are currently paying. So we're looking at, well, I'd be real surprised if we get by with 103,000, like I said in the grant application. It's going to be a lot of money that we're going to have to come up with this year. I think in the future, the Office of Head Start will understand the burden that the Affordable Care Act is going to have on us as a, quote, large employer. And sometimes it takes them a while to catch up with their funding. So right now, I'm going everywhere I can, not just to the city of Temple, to try to get money to help make it over the hump as we transition to a different kind of budgetary process. And hopefully, we changed brokers this year. Hopefully, we can do something there, but it's killing us, basically. The insurance costs have risen around 80% in the last 7 months. We're a high risk. Our usage was high risk. And we're also starting wellness programs to try to get our rates down. We're doing a lot of things, I think, that we have to do to make it work. But, oh, I didn't have the right slide up there. You probably needed to be punching these buttons. But the bottom line is that I want good teachers. I want the kind of staff ratios that NACE requires, that Head Start, that we've always required. And that is in the 0 to 3 program, 1 teacher per 4 children, no more than 8 in a classroom, so that they get the individual attention that they need. In our 3 to 5-year-old, it's 2 per 17 children. We have no more than 17 children. And working with TISD, and I've got to give them a shout out, that's one of the reasons that we have more children here, because TISD understands the collaboration and how important it is. So they are involved in all of our centers, even giving us a place to do our pregnant teen and teen parent program over there at Edwards Early Childhood Center behind the football field. So the bottom line is that these guys need good teachers, and I'm trying to keep them. If I can't, of course, we were hoping we'd win the HEB thing. That was $25,000. I thought, boy, I know where that money's going. It's going to go to those health expenses. We didn't win. We are still finalists again this year, and we hope somebody nominates us again. We'll try it again next year and see, because it was a great honor to be there. But we didn't get the money, so I'm here asking for your consideration for the percentage that we think is a fair percentage for the Temple program. Do you have any questions?
Council, any questions? Great, thank you so much.
You bet, thank you.
And it was brilliant.
Well, we'll play like.
Cultural Activities Center.
Good afternoon. My name is Brock Boone. I'm the Executive Director of the Cultural Activities Center. We're one of the few... There we go. The mission of the CAC is to enhance the quality of life for Central Texas by igniting interest and promoting participation in the arts. We're one of the few facilities in the state, probably the nation, that can offer their residents and tourists a singular place for music, for art galleries, different theater productions on our stage, school performances, classes, recreation activities, summer camps, and rental space it's a unique facility. And we work with the school districts to provide programming for the elementary school and middle school kids. We do this to align STAR and TEKS Align programs. This program is called Arts and Education. They come, about 14,000 kids come through the facility every year for these programs. We work with the fine arts directors to help make sure that they align with the skills that the teachers are seeking. We offer interactive and multicultural programming experiences. This is called hands-on. We teach the contemporaries of the CAC, teach the children about a region in the world. This year it's Japan. Last year it was, I believe, India, and it just gives them an opportunity to learn different things about the different parts of the world that they might not in class. We offer youth and family theater programs, whether it's classes like or programs like Junie B. Jones or Cinderella that we just had, just something family theater productions that are regional and touring. for the community. And finally, we offer art and dance and theater classes, just that they can just participate in at their leisure. For diversity in music, Saturday night we've got Jack Ingram. He's a Grammy Award-winning musician. Back in February, we had the Vienna Boys Choir. Two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. Obviously, high-quality music that these people can bring tourism dollars to town, and it's something for our residents to do as well. We have, again, community partnerships. We work with TISD and BISD to get some of these participation within the community. We have several umbrella organizations under us that we work with to collaborate as well. The tourism opportunities, again, going back to the the theater and the exhibit space that we have provides. Sorry, guys, I'm just a little nervous. Provides stuff for the community to see as well. Without funding, there's just a reduction of services for the community. We wouldn't be able to get the high quality exhibits that we have in our facility. We wouldn't be able to get the touring productions. We wouldn't be able to get the high class concerts that we have. We wouldn't be able to support the arts and education program. So, that kind of speaks to that. We've had a lot of recent accomplishments. We recently received a grant for $75,000 to get this 46-panel solar array. This is going to reduce our electric bill by about $6,000 a year, which is substantial. We've recently replaced every light bulb, like the ones in here, with LED tubes. That's going to reduce our electric footprint as well. So not only are we an art center, we're also a learning center that we're able to show the kids in the community a teaching aspect of energy savings as well. We started a farmer's market for the Northside residents. That's going very well. If y'all are busy on tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning and it's not raining, y'all should come out and buy some vegetables and soaps and eggs and all that kind of good stuff. The most recent accomplishment we've also been able to do is just to reestablish our family theater productions. That kind of went away for 2 or 3 years. And me and my staff have been working really hard to engage the community, engage our friends, and just to have them come back. And we have a production about every once a quarter to every 6 weeks that families can come and be engaged with as well. So it's just not country music, or it's not CTOS orchestral productions. Is stuff that everybody in the family can be engaged with. So that's what I have. Do y'all have any questions for me?
Oh, y'all have been able to do so much the past year. The solar array is fantastic, and I've had the opportunity to take a few painting classes at the CAC over the past year, and I'm ready to sign up for children's art camp this summer if that's if there isn't like actually that'd be kind of creepy, but no, y'all do a great job, and it is a wonderful asset in our community, and just appreciate the good work you do.
Sure. One last thing about this, I don't know if it's an accomplishment for us, but last year you did a mayor's proclamation to Marilyn for her years of service as she retired. We're actually dedicating the art wing to her here in just a few weeks. So Marilyn Ritchie, she worked at the CAC for over 20 years, and she's done a tremendous amount of work for us and the community. So we're dedicating the art wing in her name. So we'll send you all out invitations and hope you can attend. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brock. Feed my sheep.
Mayor, Council, appreciate the opportunity today. What this project will do if funded is take what we're calling the well. You may remember it as Don's Barbershop. Now it sits as a vacant and very rundown building on a main corridor into downtown Temple. What we would like to do with this is take and turn it into the only women's center in Temple, the only women's only center in Temple. The inside of this building needs a lot of work. But if funded fully, that would be the money we need to transform the inside of this, not only structurally, so it's ready to go, but also fill it with all of the furniture, computers, curriculum, that is needed to make this a place where women can get off the street. Many of the women, as you know, are on the street near that corridor into downtown. Get women off the street into this center, which is a safe place, and put them on the path to becoming productive citizens of our city with not only job trainings, Bible studies, but also things such as cooking classes, hygiene, medical well checks, and checkups. A full renovation is our goal. We'd like to open this by fall of 2016. We've raised just under $30,000 already. We also have about $7,500 in-kind, and we've applied for other grants from the city as well to work on the outside of this building. This, as I said, if funded fully, would allow us to fully renovate the inside of this building. And then at that point, our group can hand it over to Feed My Sheep, who already has a plan in place to run this and continue funding the running of this center when it is completed. That's a quick look at what the inside of this will look like. We already have the floor plans in place, and a lot of this was in-kind donated. It's been leveled. That was in-kind and donated. So this will become another part of the Feed My Sheep family. But again, it will be the only center for women and their children as well that is open in the Temple area. Any questions?
Matt, about how many women do you think you'd be able to serve in that facility on a daily basis?
We anticipate right off the bat being able to serve between 200 and 300 women through the building daily. We also expect that to grow as we can add more services too. Some of that may be bringing people in, having them take a special class in the morning, and then that part of the day will be done for that woman, and then another one might come in the afternoon for a different service in there. Also, you could see maybe one is using a medical check, but then she also goes over for job training too. So that'd be one woman, but she's receiving 2, 3, 4 different services in there. But we expect that to grow as more women find out about the center, and then hopefully we can start decreasing that number as we help more get out and get back on their feet again.
Feed My Sheep has a huge volunteer base. Will it be staffed primarily by volunteers, or?
Yes. It will be staffed almost entirely by volunteers. And we already have a number of women in the medical field who have said when we get something like this up and running, they'd like to come in and do those well checks. Christian Women's Job Corps is ready to come in and help do resume and help do job building and job finding. We have a couple of chefs actually who said they will volunteer their time to come in and do healthy cooking classes and show how economical it can be to cook at home. So volunteer and part of their staff that are volunteers, but then we also have community members that are ready to come in and help as well.
I know that there's always a need for that, and I applaud y'all for doing that. I'm just wondering, since Salvation Army has just opened up down the street, how well y'all will be coordinating your services so that there won't be a duplication and more ladies can get full service.
There already is some coordination between Salvation Army and Feed My Sheep. What will be unique about this facility, though, that Salvation Army will not be providing is this will be women only, and it will be a safe environment for women. So it's a place that they can come and no one else necessarily needs to know that they're there if they need to get away. It's also a place that will focus specifically on just women's needs, whereas Salvation Army will be taking a more broad approach. And from our speaking with them, their goal is short-term help. What we're looking to do here is more long-term preparation for a productive life. So the focus of it would be different in that manner.
That's great. Council? Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, everyone.
Good presentation.
Thank you.
Bell County Human Services Help Center.
Good afternoon. My name is Angela Miller. I'm the Human Resource Director for Hill Country Community Action, and our CEO is at our state association meeting today, so I was nominated to come and present this to you today. On behalf of the Bell County Human Services Temple Help Center, Bell County is requesting $50,000 of the city funds to be used for the facility expenses for the Temple Help Center, including rent, utility, and equipment. The Help Center has been providing services to the low-income households for the past 44 years of the Temple area. The Help Center partners with the City of Temple and local organizations to provide assistance to low-income individuals and families. The Help Center offers programs that address unexpected crisis and assist low-income clients to reach self-sufficiency. Effective 4/1/2015, Hill Country Community Action Association entered into a contract with Bell County to oversee the Help Center. The mission of the Help Center is to address the immediate crisis situation by providing services that will help people help themselves, by empowering them to become self-sufficient and independent through assessing their needs, utilizing community resources, providing life skills education, offering supplemental support, which leads to vocational training programs and employment. Also providing emergency financial assistance. The types of assistance include transportation, employment supplies, utility assistance, education and job skills success initiatives, emergency lodging for victims of crime and domestic violence, and case management to assist clients and transition them out of poverty. As you can see on the chart provided, from October 2014 to September 2015, 1,937 persons were served with the following. The number one being utilities and water assistance, as well as rental assistance, identification and birth certificates, boots and uniforms, and then the list goes on with books, tuition, training, emergency lodging. The Help Center staff is committed to providing effective, efficient, and meaningful services to the citizens of Temple. It is important that we continue to develop strong partnerships, collaboration, communication, and coordination with cities, counties, agencies, organizations, and faith-based groups so that essential services are met in a unified and coordinated effort. The Help Center is now a partner of the Bell County Coalition in collaboration with Feed My Sheep, St. Vincent's de Paul, and Churches Touching Christ, Lives for Christ. The BCHS Help Center staff continues to be a strong link that reaches many of the citizens who otherwise would not receive services. The Help Center's goal is to guide and strengthen customers and hope to promote self-sufficiency and lead to the path of independence. Thank you for your support, and I hope that I can answer any questions that you may have.
If the city is unable to reach your full funding request, will there be a decrease in services or?
I would hope that there would not be a decrease in services. I'm sure that we would try to reach out and figure out another way. My understanding is that this is for the utilities and the building itself. There's a rental fee for the building. But I can reach out and ask that question of our CFO. She would know more specific on that. I can have the answer to you this afternoon.
No, that's no problem.
I apologize. I was just nominated to do this.
No, you did a great job.
So, and I think I have the next presentation as well. Is that correct?
Not unless you're Hillcrest Cemetery, but I'll tell you
Nope.
what.
That's not me.
I bet Miss Coley won't mind if you go ahead.
No.
All right. No. Seriously.
Mayor,
Yeah.
you did skip Hill Country Community Action Association.
Oh, I did. So it's my fault. You love it. You love it when that happens. I mean, the glee, the glee that you have. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no, it's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay.
I thought we could, actually, I looked down at the list and I thought we were really ahead of schedule. And I was really excited, and then I just skipped most of them, so.
So this one is about the Aging Services Nutrition Program from Hill Country Community Action. This particular program provides a lifeline for the frail, elderly, homebound clients with a hot, nutritious meal that is delivered to their home, but it's also more than a meal. The person delivering the meal stays for a short visit with the individual and provides companionship and an emotional type of security. Many times this is the only person that they see all day. Congregate meals that are served at the Salmons Community Center, the Friendship House, Golden Haven, Graham Hall, and Kyle Center. And then they also offer home-delivered meals served within a 2-mile radius of the Temple city limits. The program activities include providing a hot, nutritious noon meal 5 days per week, Monday through Friday, and they also provide nutrition information, coordinate and refer for services with other social service agencies. The program need, homebound participants surveyed said that without our meals, 4% would actually go hungry, 38% would eat cereal or frozen meals, and 8% would not be able to remain in their home. Participant contributions, we do suggest that there is a contribution of $3, but services, of course, are never denied if a person cannot pay that $3 fee. From CEG grants, the proposed request has been $25,000 for the Salmons Community Center. This would include $22,860 for the cook's salary and fringe, and then $2,140 for raw food. And at that particular center, the meal is actually cooked at the center and then provided. And I wanted to go ahead and just find out how many participants we serve per day. Currently, it's about 20 to 30, but I know that they are planning some expansion and renovation of that center soon, so I look for that number to increase. The CDBG grant funds request. $21,124 was requested for the Temple Senior Services. This is a location where we deliver homebound meals, and approximately 185 meals per day are delivered. Our program goal for this program is to improve the living environment and promote self-sufficiency for senior citizens aged 60 and older and for persons with disabilities. Our program objective is to improve the health of the elderly by providing a well-balanced meal each weekday and by providing nutritional information to them. It's also to allow the elderly and disabled to lead independent, meaningful lives in their own homes and communities for as long as they possibly can. In conclusion, many older folks in Central Texas don't have enough to eat. Too little income, physical impairments, and the absence of friends and family means every day is spent at home alone. Funding for the nutrition program has not kept up with this need. Without your support, senior citizens could go hungry ultimately. Do you have any questions?
I'm going to keep my mouth shut from here on out.
Okay, I don't have another one.
Okay.
Thank you.
Like I'd know anyway, so thanks so much. Did a great job. Now, Ms. Coley, Hillcrest Cemetery.
Well, I'm Brenda Coley, and I'm president of the Hillcrest Board of Trustees. And I didn't bring a PowerPoint because I didn't think I was supposed to.
No, you're good either way.
Okay, that's good. Spur of the moment deal here.
Perfect.
Our yearly budget is around $125,000 a year, and our income is solely from sales of plots and donations, and we usually fall short of that every year. And with the rain and the runoff that goes through the cemetery, our roads and some of the headstones have fallen over from all the water. And our drainage is not adequate either. And we've been trying to fix our drainage and new culverts. But that's what our request for the money would help us do, and it also would help us maintain the daily goings of Hillcrest. And that's all I got to say. Thank you all for your time and your consideration into our situation. The temple has been very good to Hillcrest, and we hope you continue.
Well,
Thank you.
Ms. Coley,
Yes, sir.
Just out of curiosity, I know that y'all engage in several fundraising efforts throughout the year, and I guess last month, Councilman Davis and I went out for the 5K. We didn't actually run, but just out of curiosity, how did y'all do with that?
We did considerably well. We raised $2,500
Wonderful.
for that. And we've donated that money to go, earmarked that money to go to section markers in our cemetery. I don't know if any of y'all have been out there or know anything about the Hillcrest, but if you don't know where you're going, you're lost. With over 70 acres out there, we have 18,000 internment. And a lot of people get lost. People from out of town come in on the weekends when there's nobody in the office, and they cannot find their loved ones. So we've earmarked that money for section markers throughout the cemetery, and so far we've got over 30 of them done. They're like $100 each, and we also had we've been having our VA Veterans Day memorial services and Memorial Day, and it's gotten awareness out about Hillcrest on how people can donate and help us out with the cemetery.
If we don't meet your funding request, are you going to attempt to get the city manager and I stuck in the mud again like you did that
Yes,
one
sir.
time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was just curious.
It almost worked, didn't it?
Yeah, we might still be stuck out there.
I was a little worried, I got to tell you.
No, Hillcrest Cemetery is one of the treasures of our community, and certainly you know how we all feel about it. And,
Yes.
and thanks for your work and all the board's work
Thank you.
to keep it going.
Well, we appreciate all your time and your consideration into this matter.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank y'all.
Thanks. And the Hill Country Transit District, the HOP.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and City Manager, staff. How are you? Thanks very much for having us here. Make sure I know where I'm going. Good, I'm operating it well. We do operate fixed route service and ADA complimentary paratransit service for people with disabilities. The ADA service is required. It's only required during the same days and hours of service, and actually only within 3/4 mile of a fixed route that we provide. However, we provide this service throughout the entire city limits of the City of Temple. We also provide the weekdays and limited service on Saturdays. This is a review of our current Temple routes. We have 3 routes. We cover a good bit of Temple. We'd love to see it expand. That's not going to happen anytime soon, but we keep our eye on it. Each year we develop our budget. We consider the expenses for the upcoming fiscal year, and then we try to offset those expenses through the various revenue streams available, and I'm going to talk to you a minute about them. Our Federal Transit Administration does provide funding, but the sources that we provide simply does not keep up with the increased costs of providing service. I also think there's sometimes a little bit of a misconception about FTA. They do provide funding. They're primarily targeting the startup of systems, and over time they expect that funding responsibility to transfer to the local areas. And there's various ways that that's funded, and currently we, not atypical for our type size system, is funded often through the general fund. This is kind of a breakdown of our funding for the HOP for the FY17 budget. As you can see, the total is $3.3 million, and this is our entire Temple division, which includes our services within Belton. FTA, at the top, that's Federal Transit Administration, provides over 1/3 of that funding. TxDOT provides about $250,000. The next 3 levels are revenue sources, our fare revenue. Medicaid revenue is a contract we have to provide Medicaid services, which also goes to help offset the match requirements for other funding, such as TxDOT and FTA funding. And then we have other miscellaneous revenue, which is some local revenues that we receive. We have contracts for some like indigent health care, and that offsets some of it as well. After we get through our local sheriff's shortfall is $272,000. We split that up among the entities by looking at the proportionate share of hours of service within each entity. The Temple service this year, we'd like to see $209,632. That's not to expand service, that's simply to sustain the current level of service. For FY15, we requested $142,000 from Temple for operating funds. For FY16, it did increase to $187,000. Temple provided the same level as FY15, so for this year, we're at $142,000. We did continue the same level of service both for fixed route and our ADA door-to-door service within Temple. We simply cannot sustain that level again in FY17 at that funding level. Our service reductions, without the funding requested, we would have to consider service reductions, and I'm just going to cover some of the ways that could happen. One would be reduce or eliminate Saturday service. We could reduce weekday hours of service. We could reduce or terminate current routes, but we must seriously look at ways to reduce service unless we can meet our funding request. Again, our funding request is $209,632. I want to touch briefly on one of the things we do. We also work very closely with Council of Governments, with K-Tempo. We work with TxDOT. They've set up funds and grants that help us on our planning side a lot, and they've actually brought in Texas A&M University to conduct surveys. They did that 5 years ago. They're in the process of doing that again. It's a state requirement. Texas A&M does that. We do not pay for that out of our operating funds. That's paid for through the COG. As that goes on and is operated, we found that these are the three areas that we consistently find we're short in. We need to increase geographic coverage through more routes, increase service hours by running later and providing more weekend service, and increase the frequency of our fixed route buses rather than as it is currently with only once an hour. If we were to reduce Saturday service, we would have to look at both door-to-door and our fixed route services. Our fixed route service operates all three routes on Saturday from about 9:30 a.m. until 5:30. If we were to receive the same funding level from Temple as reserved for the last 2 years, it would be to probably reduce the Saturday service would be the most practical way to reduce that service. The reduction process would include our going through public hearings. We'd probably begin that as soon as possible after we know what the final budget is, with the objective of making changes as early as possible. Each month that we go after October is funding that's not really paid for fully, so we would want to try to get this to happen no later than the end of December if possible. We must rely on the interest and financial support of local cities to sustain the current level of service. I would love to tell you that we won't go up anymore, but I'd be not telling you the truth. I can't tell you that. The funding levels are not keeping up with the cost, and that's not unusual. That's typical. We would hope that as time goes on in the future that some options could be looked at through some type of dedicated funding, whether that was through some type of tax support or whatever. There's different ways to look at that. Right now, we just need to take a look at what we can do to continue the service. We'd very much like to see us get the $209,000. Just one more thing, too. We've been very fortunate in the way that we've been doing service. We received in 2015 Federal Transit Administration Region 6 award for the best transit system in the region, which covers several states. We work very hard to provide high-quality service. All of our bus stops are marked. All of our bus stops have good shelter information. All of our bus stops have route schedule information. We work very hard to provide a high-quality service, and we very much appreciate the relationship we've had with the city. We hope we'll continue that, and we plan to, doing our best with what we have.
Mr. Ador, what is the ridership on any given Saturday?
Our fixed route ridership on Saturday is about 300, real close to that, which is phenomenal. So a lot of people actually ride. Our weekday service, we have about 450 to 500 ride on a weekday. Now, our door-to-door service is not quite as heavy. We only have somewhere about 40 trips on Saturday. We really would like to keep probably close to half of those trips are for kidney dialysis. We really don't want to cut that, even if we're unable to get the full funding. We want to look very serious how we can keep that. That's life-sustaining stuff.
Out of the 300 riders that you serve on a Saturday, is that I mean, that wouldn't be typically job-related on a Saturday. That's running errands and
It's a little bit
doing
of-
the things they can't do
That's
during
correct.
the week.
Right, it's probably some, a lot of it's recreational, a lot of it is shopping, yes, sir. And then during the weekend, I've seen some of the other presentations, there was one that talked about using hop tokens and passes, and a lot of the other services are asking for funding today, and, you know, just fund everybody would be great, we'd all appreciate that. But, you know, they do rely on us to get there, so the programs that they have, they rely on us to help get their people to those programs as well.
Council on the
I just remember way back when we didn't have transportation and what a difference it's made in our community. It's enabled people to be able to go to the resources they really need, especially to the hospitals and the shopping and things that are everyday life. So thank you for your work.
Thank you very much. Just one more comment. I speak to every new class when we hire new employees. We work very hard to hire good people and get them in the right places. We take that very, very seriously. And one of the first things I ask them is, how did they get there to that day? And they all, well, we drove today. And I asked them to take a look at their lives and what it'd be like today if you did not have transportation, if you had to rely on somebody else to get you around. And it's really important, so.
Well, and I mean, just my question earlier about the shopping, you know, it's not like, you know, any of us in the room can get in our cars and, you know, if we need a loaf of bread and run to the store. But a lot of these people, this is the only time during the week that they have the opportunity or the transportation to do that.
And we actually started, we had a lot of requests for service in the late evenings. We'd still like to do that. Ideally, we'd run from 5 till 11, you know, 7 days a week. When we looked at a lot of that, it's overwhelmingly responsible. People really wanted the service to be able to go on a Saturday. We kind of did Saturdays instead of evening or service hours. It's more cost effective, it's more financially prudent, and it still carries a lot of people.
Remember, nothing good happens after 9 o'clock, though, so.
I'll keep that in mind, sir. I don't turn into anything that I know of, but I try to be in bed by then.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Keep Temple beautiful.
Thank you. Is there a deal here? Okay. Somewhere, there it goes, okay. Mayor, council, city manager, staff. First of all, I just want to thank you for this past year of all the cooperation and partnershiping that you have participated in with Keep Temple Beautiful. It was a great year. We could not do it without all of your help and your support, financially, volunteer, guidance, suggestions, all those many, many ways that we interact with one another. I'm proud to say that, you know, even though we were not eligible to win the Governor's Award again this year, we submit every year because it helps us stay on our toes, it keeps us sharp, it helps us to stay engaged at the state level and to see what other cities are doing. And I'm proud to say that at the end of this year's award, we were told that we did even better this year than last year. We received the highest score I think we've ever received, higher than we did last year. And we were told hands down that if we were eligible, that we would have won it again. And I said, change the rules. But what I'm really saying is, we haven't let down. We're still committed to making Temple beautiful, keeping Temple beautiful, and keeping the reputation that our community has across the state for being a leader in this type of activity and promoting our city, our economy, and to make Temple a better place to live now and for decades to come. And so we are committed to that, and we will continue. We will, again, participate in the Governor's Award, even though we're not eligible again, because we believe that if we're going to be prepared to win this award again, when we're eligible in a couple more years, we have to stay sharp, and we have to keep doing those kinds of activities. Many of the programs that we do are not just one-shot programs. They're repeat-type programs. They're programs that continue and grow and that expand, from year to year to year, and as we develop our volunteer network, and we work with different of our corporate partners and as well as our governmental partners, we're developing just a new attitude in our community. A can-do attitude, an attitude that is committed to the quality of life that I think all of us desire and all of us want and aspire to. And but without your financial support, we would not exist. And we've found that we're pretty good about raising money for particular projects, garnering volunteers, for planting trees, and all those kinds of things. Where people, they'll come bring their shovel and they'll come pick up their trash or whatever the project is, getting rid of electronic waste, doing neighborhood cleanups. We can muster the troops, we can get the volunteers, but there are certain just costs. We just don't have any sources of income. And so we're an organization that's a volunteer board that relies totally on volunteers except for one staff person. And so our ability to function is totally dependent upon the benevolence and consideration of the city and this particular program. And I want to thank you for all that you've done in the past. I just want to let you know that we're committed to continuing that which we've been doing in the past decade, and we're going to do for the next decade, as evidenced by what we did this year when we had no chance of winning. Most cities kind of let down their guard and say, "Well, I need to work hard." That's not us. We're committed to working hard every year, every day, to making Temple the very best place to live and to work and to play, to be the place, to be a 21st century city that people want to come and work. And I believe that many things we've done through the years has helped shape and change the attitude of our citizens to expect more and to do more and to really, truly make Temple a great city that it is. And I just thank y'all. I appreciate whatever you can do to help us. And we will, whatever you do, we will keep doing what we're doing. Thank y'all very much.
Thomas, I know there's several board members and volunteers out in the audience. If y'all will just raise your hands, and thank y'all for being here. And Tanya, it's good to see you up and at 'em. Good.
Right.
Any questions? Thanks for all the work you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And council and everybody, would y'all mind if we took just a 5-minute break? Mr. Nash, is that all right with you? All right. Give us just a few minutes. 10-minute, 5-minute break. If I believe Mr. Nash is here for NeighborWorks.
Yes.
Thanks.
Hi. Thank you, Mayor Dunn. Roy Nash, Executive Director of NeighborWorks, and for our Temple operations, we're calling it NeighborWorks Home Ownership Center. And what you're looking at on the slideshow is our new offices right across the street at the old Carnegie Library. We're on the second floor. In fact, our office has probably most of the second floor in that building. So we're right next to putting staff in that building, and particularly counselors who will be able to counsel with families wanting to buy homes in Temple. And so what we're here today for, though, is to ask for, in the grant process, $25,000 for homeownership, down payment, and closing cost assistance. And you see there are proposed guidelines for our clients, $5,000 forgivable. This would be for down payment, closing costs, to enable folks to be able to get into their very first home. This will be first-time home buyers. In talking to my friend Pat Patterson, we'd love for his clients, he was just telling me about some clients that he's planning to build a home on the east side for, and would love to be able to provide some of this money to that family. And actually, it's a couple, I guess, and hopefully we'll have plenty more lining up behind that couple to come to us to want down payment, closing cost assistance to get into their first home. You know, families who are wanting to buy a home for the first time, it's usually credit and lack of down payment. Those are the two issues that keep them from buying their first home. And as you can see from the little handout, our organization is all about education. We do not put a family in a home that cannot afford a home, period. We do not set anybody up for failure. We want them to be successful. In fact, we track customers for the life, their life, our life. We track taxes and insurance for them. We track their maintenance ability on their home. We want them to be successful, and we'll do whatever we can to make sure they're successful, not just till we make them a loan, but for the time that they're in that home as a new homeowner. So that's our program. You can see the little brochure. It talks about our educational programs that we'll be offering on a regular basis. The first one is scheduled for, I believe, Saturday, January the 25th. June the 25th, I'm sorry, in Temple, again, at our offices here in downtown Temple. So that's our program. We're excited about coming to Temple. We already have an electronic billboard up on the interstate near the Johnson Brothers Ford there. You see it, and talks about we're in Temple. So with our address and phone number and so forth. So entertain any questions.
I'm excited you're here.
Yeah, it's
I'm
a
very excited.
wonderful program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we've been in Waco, as you know, since '93. NeighborWorks America started in 1978 with a great story. So we're one of 240 NeighborWorks organizations around the country. Just so you'll know, our organization happens to be receive NeighborWorks' highest rating. We're an exemplary organization according to their standards, and we're very proud to be that. So, and again, excited to be coming to Temple, Texas.
Oh, that's great.
I may have missed it, but how many homeowners in a good year, or what's your goal per year as far as new homeowners?
Right. We've been hitting the last few years. We've been hitting just over 40 new homeowners. Now, in really good years, now this is counting either education or where we're part of the lending process, or part of the, again, education, counseling, lending. In a really good year back in the early 2000s, we were hitting around 170. So that's really where we'd like to get back up to. 40 is we're just getting back into getting reestablished after the downturn here that started in 2008. And so if we can get those millennials on board, we hear they're starting to buy again. We think those numbers will jump back up there. So, but we've helped over 3,000 home buyers, first-time home buyers in our 21-year history, 23-year history.
Out of those 3,000, do you know the percentage of folks that were able to maintain the ownership of their home? Or,
you know, our default rate is lower than the norm, just because we do hold their hand all the way.
Education and everything else. And
so it's a small percentage. It's in the 1+% wise. Now that's to say we have some folks who are getting a little skittish. And in some cases, we've gone in and actually bought their mortgage back. And so if we have to do some creative things to save people, it's usually over financial issues, either health or divorce or other serious financial issue. Loss of wages is another big one. Never because the mortgage increased. In fact, every one of the mortgages that we participate in has to be fixed rate. We're not a believer in adjustable rates. Because low-income folks don't need any surprises. You know, they need a good house that's going to last a long time with low maintenance, low energy cost, and you know, a steady mortgage to pay. So really, taxes and insurance are the biggest adjustment, and we're monitoring those for them to help make sure they don't get out of line.
Could you tell us a little bit about what is involved in the credit repair classes or the?
Right, so what we do, Councilman Morales, is folks have to come to us and fill out a form and telling us all about their finances. And they can do that online, fill out that form, submit it to us, and then we run their credit report. And so we get a clear picture of what their credit looks like. And so what we do is put a budget together, and we put a repair plan. And so we take the issues that affect credit first, and let's say they have judgments and so forth, or write-offs. They've got to work on those issues. And so our counselors know which ones to work on first to get those paid off so that their credit will improve, so that they can become loan worthy. We want them to get the very best mortgage they can get in the industry. And we don't want them doing that until they're ready. And we usually let them know when they're ready to make that move. So some people it might take a month, but some people it might take 2 years, if it's really bad. And so we'll work with them. We never tell them no. We never reject anybody. Everybody's on a plan to repair their credit. And virtually everybody who comes to us has some kind of credit issue. So those are our bread and butter clients, the ones that need some help. If we get one that doesn't, that's the rare. We love them still, but that's a rare client. So, and interestingly enough, most of our clients, probably 70%, single female with kids. You think about it, we're fast becoming a fatherless society as there's fewer, I think, families, where they have a marriage and the father stays in the home. And so we're working with those single females who are responsible now for putting food on the table and being the breadwinner and putting a roof over the head and teaching them all the things they need for their schoolwork and so forth. It becomes too much. And so we're there to help these single females with kids, most of them, get into a home even and stabilize their life as far as shelter is concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Nash.
Hey, thank y'all.
Ronald McDonald House. Family.
We've got about 50 slides. Might take a while. Just kidding.
Want to bet?
I'm really nervous about this. I did work up a little bit. I talked to some first graders last week, so I think I'm ready. My name is Mark Cermak. I'm with the Ronald McDonald House here in Temple. I act as their accountant, bookkeeper, business manager, maintenance man. I work with Susan Bolton, who a lot of you know is the executive director. And today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what we do and what we need, what we'd like to do. It's one of these buttons.
First grader can work.
Okay, so what we do is our mission is to provide a home away from home for the families of seriously ill or injured children who need treatment and have to travel to Temple. So we do this by providing them with lodging, meals, laundry facilities. But I think one of the most important things that we do is we provide a warm, friendly, stress-free environment that helps them renew their spirit and their body. So children whose the children whose families stay at the Ronald McDonald House, these tend to be some of the sickest kids. They've traveled the farthest, and they're probably going to spend the most time in the hospital. So as you can imagine, it's a very stressful situation for these parents and their kids. So our mission is to help put them in a place that can reduce that stress. So when they get there, we do all that we can to help them cope and to help them get as comfortable as possible, which brings us to our ask. We'd like to pursue a room renew project. Basically, we need to update and renew our current rooms, refurbish, redecorate, make them more inviting, more comfortable, and we hope that this will help these folks renew their bodies, their souls, and reduce some of their stress from the traumatic situations that they may be dealing with. The last major update to our rooms was in 2002. That's when we completed an expansion project. We went from 8 rooms to 19. Since then, the majority of the replacement items or anything additional has been acquired secondhand through a hotel that's renovating or remodeling, or in some of it comes from individual donors. So some of these items that we'd like to to implement to make the rooms better is the house needs to have enough matching bedding so that the rooms can be turned over quicker, so they're ready for occupancy. Our current televisions right now require digital converters. We received those back in 2005, again from a hotel that was going under some renovation, and I'm sure at that point they already had some time on them, so they're quite old. There's a number of other touches that we'd like to add, I think, that warm things up, including maybe some art, some window treatments, headboards, warmer paint scheme, items such as that. And here's a picture of a couple of rooms from other Ronald McDonald houses that are in the system. And you can tell that this is kind of where we'd like to go, quite a bit warmer than some of those others that you may have seen in those previous pictures. We estimate the cost to be around $35,000. I think this is fairly conservative and realistic. The house has been a tremendous beneficiary of the generosity of this community. So our plan calls for to reciprocate that support and that generosity by going to local businesses to acquire the items that we need for our project. So our mission statement says that we want to provide a home away from home for the seriously ill or injured children, but we also want to do a lot more than that. We want to provide a place that's going to help lower their stress levels and create an environment that's going to help renew their spirits and their bodies. And there's some of our strategies. We're going to work with the area businesses, as I've already mentioned. We'd like to bring them, the rooms up to the same standard as current Ronald McDonald House charities across the globe. We'd like to complete it in a timely manner. And so hopefully this will improve our guest satisfaction and also could increase public support financially through enhanced professional look of the house. And this is some smiling faces that we'd like to see more of. So, in summary, basic bottom line, we just want to help reduce the stress levels of the people that come here, make it more comfortable, more warm, a relaxing place where they can renew themselves. And in conclusion, Ronald McDonald House supports the concept of family-centered care by helping folks gain access to quality health care. Being here in Temple, we have one of the best healthcare systems in the state, if not the country. And we also provide emotional and physical comfort to those families. It helps them stick together and it helps them cope with the situation. And so, by enhancing the experience or the hospital stay, which studies have shown, this is kind of where I've been with the whole reducing stress thing. There's a number of studies out there where if the parents have lower stress levels, the kids have better outcomes. So, any questions?
Mark, have you sought out other funding sources for this, or is this specifically a project that you were looking at our funding for?
At the moment, it's specifically city directed, yeah.
You have 19 rooms
Yes, sir.
now. What's your occupancy? Are y'all typically pretty full, or?
Well, we run about 60% occupancy on a year-round basis. The summer months are closer to 80 or 90%. And then, winter months aren't quite as heavy, but on an annual basis, it's about 60%.
You have any idea what the average stay is?
About 11 days.
Okay.
And that's a big range. There's a couple of nights we've had them as long as 18 months.
And they really, when they're there, they really become part of the family of.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The families talk to each other. There's a great support network, built in. Just families are going through some of the same things.
Y'all do great work.
Thank you.
If Susan were doing this, she'd just be getting warmed up.
Yeah.
That's why he's talking. I would like to tell, I forgot your name, I'm sorry.
Tracy Bernard.
Tracy knows somebody who stayed at the house a few years ago, and he was a teeny tiny baby.
Yeah, he weighed 1 pound and 12 ounces, and he was there from November to January.
He's like 5 now?
Mhm.
Success.
That's great. No, y'all really do fantastic things, and we're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And you do have a great executive director too, right?
You do.
Oh, yes, sir.
You do.
All right.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thanks.
Tell Penny hi. What else do we have? Temple Symphony Orchestra. Jan, you've been so patient.
I know. Last year you called me to come 2 hours early, so, you know, I was
Well, but
proactive
did-
this
did-
year.
But didn't you learn a lot, though?
I
That was
did, I
good.
did. You know, I was a social worker at heart from the beginning, so I would like to see all of them get funded myself, so I agree. Let's see. Well, now I'm having trouble with this one.
Mark probably broke it.
Okay. Right click? Oh, that's too easy. Okay. All right. Temple Symphony Orchestra was started back in 1994. I'm sure most of you know about this. It was through the leadership of the city, and it was also with Tom Fairley. And Tom Fairley has been our, this is Tom in the string section, and he has been with us for 22 years, going on 23 this fall. And there's just been a lot to change in the last 23 years. So one of the best things is that Tom is going to retire from Temple College, and he will be devoting himself more full-time to not just music, but also Temple Symphony Orchestra. So we're really excited about that. One of the most important aspects, of course, dear to my heart, is the outreach to our community, which we do through Temple Symphony String Quartet. The quartet goes out to the elementary schools to talk with the 3rd and 4th graders primarily, to encourage them to understand how music relates to our culture and how maybe they may not have thought of that or been taught that in school yet, and try to encourage them to get into the music program at their next grade level, which is 4th or 5th. And so that's a wonderful portion. The other portion that we started 2 years ago is our older adult living centers. And we started with Central Texas Housing Consortium and going to those places to play a performance and engage those older adults with classical and sometimes like 1940s ragtime music, things that they could relate to that would help encourage them to, you know, be a little more lively in the afternoons and have something to look forward to. This photo right here is from Arbor House, where we had one of our past patrons ended up and was delighted to see us, because many times in our older adult living situations, they get gospel music and they may get some men quartets, but they rarely get classical music. And so we're really excited about being able to do that program. Our next season, which will be the 23rd season, is a very eclectic season. And we have everything from Prokofiev to Beethoven. And we also have a little sprinkling of the Dean of American Composers, which is Aaron Copland. So it's going to be I think somewhere in here there's even an accordion player. I believe, yeah, at the family Pops concert, we have an accordion player. So we've just got a little bit of everything for everybody. This is a data graph that shows the growth over the last 4 years. Of course, one of the things that I really enjoy seeing with this graph is the growth of our student complimentary ticket program. This program is really important to help get those young people that we work with in the school system through our outreach and give them a means of being able to come to a concert, a live performance that is, you know, a full concert of professional musicians. And that program has really taken off. Many of the musicians in the orchestra are actually teachers in the school system. So it's kind of goes hand in hand. But one of the beautiful things about this program is if they bring their parent, the parent gets in for half price. So we're attempting to create a whole new patron system through our youth. This is the percentage of our budget that we are asking in our grant, so that you can see we take a lot of time putting all these pieces of puzzle together. And just want to thank you for your time. As I sat here with you, I can understand your quandary as how many of those you can actually fund. And like I said, a lot of my heart goes out to some of these programs like the HOP and the other centers. So thank you for your time today, and we hope we continue to get your support.
I have a question, if you don't
Okay.
mind. Do you have any board members present in the audience today?
I do. I have Buford is in
I don't
the
want you to
audience
think
today,
that I
and
don't want you to think this messes up your chances or anything.
No.
But
No, Buford's one of my helpers at every concert. I couldn't make it through without Buford. And we've also asked Mr. Jonathan to help us too. So we've asked Jonathan Graham to be a part of our board, not to try to influence anything with the city council, just want his expertise and his knowledge and things that we need to take care of, like more fundraising. So do you want to let the cat out of the bag of what we've asked you to do, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I was like, did I agree to be on the board? And
No.
that was a tough night.
No, but you did agree
no.
to be a participant in our conductor contest.
Yes.
Which we will be launching in August for the December concert.
I'm
So
looking
if he
very
wins,
forward
he
to
gets to conduct the orchestra.
Is he going to play the accordion?
No.
No.
No, he won't be at that
Thank you
particular
so
event.
much.
Thank you for being here, and thanks for waiting 2 hours.
Oh, no problem. I learned a lot.
Yeah, conducting. Get a lot of practice here.
You're going to have to practice that.
I will. I'll work on it. Maybe not today.
Now, do you play an instrument?
Do I play an instrument? No, not well. just the my voice is my instrument. So. Do we have anything else? Please say no.
Just closing comments.
Have any closing comments, JG? Anybody want to say anything? We're like really early. Say anything off the record, I'll go ahead and end the meeting. No, I'm kidding. If there is nothing else, this workshop is adjourned. We will meet back right here at 5 o'clock for our regular meeting. Thank you. Navy beans. Oh. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Temple City Council for Thursday, May 19th, 2016. Please rise as Thomas Peckhall with Temple Fire and Rescue leads us in the invocation, followed by the pledge, which will be led by Buford Craig, our downtown Temple Transformation Coordinator.
Let us pray. Most Heavenly Father, we thank you for the gifts you've given us. Father, we ask you to watch over our elected officials, welcome our new elected officials in, grant them courage and wisdom to make the decisions that they need for the good of your people. Father, bless our military men and women, keep them safe until they can return home. Father, we thank you for the many blessings that you give us every day, the rain, the cool temperatures. Father, we ask that you watch over each of us as we go our separate ways. Open our hearts and minds that we may always love you and serve you. We ask these things in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in reciting the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both. Now is the opportunity for public comments. Anyone wishing to speak on any matter may do so. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. There will be no discussion or final action that will be taken by the council. First up, Ms. Shirley Mason.
My name is Shirley Mason. I live at 415 West Avenue F.
Oh, Ms. Mason,
I'm close to.
If I can stop you for just a second, you're actually signed up for a public appearance. This is
I don't need to.
it's just me talking. If you'll
Mayor.
if you'll just look at me for just.
Oh.
No, I was going to say you're actually signed up for a public appearance. So I'll call you in just a minute. Oh no worries. And I've got several gentlemen signed up to speak on the one of the properties that, or one of the items that we'll have a public hearing on later. You're welcome to speak now, or if you'd like to wait until that item comes up, you'll have that opportunity as well. And so I'll call you each. Mr. Milton Flick.
Later.
Okay. Mr. Sufall. Okay. Mr. Zepner.
I'll wait till the public, I'm going to say something or pass.
Okay. And there's another gentleman, Mr. Titchener? Turner, I'm sorry. What would you like to speak now, or would you?
Well, you want to get more time now?
You can speak both. You can speak both times if you'd like.
My name is Franklin Cherner, and I retired from Wilson Art about 20 years ago, and I know a lot of you people hear a lot of names, and a lot of you guys wasn't even born when I was at Wilson Art. But I did want to say one point of interest is that I was the person that signed the purchase order for the first compactor in Temple, Texas. And that there may be a few of you have heard of Paul Boyd. Well, he and I went to Arlington to look at a situation. So I've been involved in the trash business somewhat for a lot of years. Can everybody hear? The thing I want to say is that I own property downstream from the Temple dump. We all know that the devaluation of property surrounding the dump is considerable. But that's only one problem. The problem I have, and I know we have to have a dump. We have to have a place to go with our garbage or whatever you want to call it. My biggest objection is that we're bringing in garbage from all over the country. 70% of the garbage coming into this dump ground is from other than Temple, Texas. When I was working for Wilson Art, I traveled a lot, and I went all over the country. And people would say, "Where are you from?" I say, "Temple, Texas." They say, "Oh, you got that good Scott and White Hospital in Temple." I say, "That's right. That's where I'm from." I just don't want us to get to the point where people say, "Where are you from?" You say Temple. They say, "Oh, that's a dump ground in Central Texas." Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Item 3 on the agenda is to consider adopting a resolution electing a mayor pro tem for the city of Temple. And I will entertain motions for mayor pro tem.
Mayor Dunn, I'd like to support Perry Cloud's name as mayor pro tem.
Second. Motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Councilmember Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington.
Aye.
Councilmember Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Congratulations, Perry.
Thank you. You're not going anywhere, are you?
No, but I have a few gigs for you to take care of while you're thinking about it.
A few Saturdays.
Yeah, a few Saturday things. Now, we'll take items 4 and 5 together. We'll receive comments from Shirley Mason regarding code enforcement and parking in yards. And item 5, receive comments from Shirley Mason regarding drainage issues at South 9th and Avenue F. Ms. Mason, thank you for your patience. You're welcome to come back up now.
Okay, all right, thank you. I am Shirley Mason. I've been at 415 West Avenue F close to 50 years. And this morning when God woke me up, I prayed. And I prayed before I come up here. And I pray for everybody. And my concern is, close to 50 years, how come I'm getting a paper from code enforcement about a car parked in my yard? Close to 50 years. Okay? And I have the letters here. I have both of them here. And my grass is mowed. And also, it says on here, at the bottom, poses a danger to the public and safety. Okay, if a car parked in your yard on your grass, how is it a danger, pose a danger if it's in your yard? On this down here at the bottom of the page. Okay, that's the first letter that I received. January 21st, 2015. And the second letter I received was April 25th, 2016. This was the car, which is my grandson was tired. So he wanted to know if he'd come sleep 3 or 4 hours. He wasn't there that long. So I got another letter. It's got a code on here. About parking in the grass. Okay? So I was just wondering, after all these many years, and the car have been parked on the grass, and I've never got a code of enforcement, so I'm just wondering why that 2016, and I've been at 415 West Avenue close to 50 years, and I'm just wondering why I got a letter, two
Well,
letters.
I'll say it was probably been about 5 years ago that there was an ordinance change on parking in yards, and I can't speak to why you are now just getting a citation on it, but that would be why. And I want to say it was probably 2011 or the end of 2010 that we made that ordinance change.
Mayor, if I could, we did pass a new nuisance ordinance at the end of December of this past year, December 2015, and I believe they began enforcing that in January of this year.
But the first time it was, I guess, I forgot that we'd renewed it then.
Because I've been over there close to 50 years, and I've never, ever got where, and the car's not parked there all the time. My grandson was coming from work, and I would rather for him to use common sense, not to hurt himself or to hurt nobody else. He was tired. And he said, Grandma, I said, yeah, it'd be all right. I wasn't expecting another letter, but anyway, I told him, well, you can't do it no more because I don't want another letter coming here. And he was there for not even 6-7 hours, and I got this letter.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's fine. I'm just wanting to know because I never got one before. You know what I'm saying? And I can't understand why it would be posed a danger to the public health or to the safety of someone when it's parked, you know, in my yard, you know, and on my property, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
And with that, about the drainage problem. Okay, I've been calling about the drainage. It's on the corner of 415 West Avenue F and South 9th Street. Okay, I keep papers, I make copies of everything. Dwayne Dalton, he retired, but he did come out and talk to me, and he told me, when the temperatures get up to 103 and 4, cast iron pipes, sewer pipes that's still up under there, swells up. So before they rebuilt the shelter up there, and it was Martha's Kitchens, I had pictures when it was tore down. I got 22 windows in my house, so it's not too much of nothing I miss. Okay? So all the mess come up, rope, paper, etc., wood, everything come up on the corner there, okay? I have called, I have put ammonia in there because in the summertime, you know, everything smells. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just wondering why the drainage is not fixed. The suction cup, that big truck that comes out and suction everything up, The guys are nice enough to come around to suction it out. But then when it rained like it rained today, the day before, same problems and the same problems. So I'm just here for that and just want to know, but I keep my yard and I keep that drainage clean because I'd rather put Pyrex and ammonia now to cut down the smells than to have it stinking on, right on the corner right there. You know what I'm saying? And I do get out there, and I know that they was building the shelter. I'm 1, 2, 3 steps from the shelter. I'm 2 steps from Bell County Health Department, so I'm real close, okay? So that was the only thing that I wanted to ask. That's the only thing I wanted to bring, to talk about, and that I'm just wondering why something can't be done, or if it can be fixed, or what. Because it rain like this, I got a big old puddle on the sidewalk. It just comes on up, and the drainage don't drain nothing now. So, and that's what I put down there to keep flies, mosquitoes, and all that.
We'll have somebody go out and take a look at that for you again.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And I told my grandson, how tired he is, just try to make it home. Don't park in my yard, no. I don't want another letter. So, but other than that, that was what I wanted to ask, because I just wanted to know, because I had never had a letter before after all these many years. If you never get something, you've been there close to 50 years, you do ask questions. And that's the only way you're going to find out anything, when you ask questions.
We appreciate you coming tonight.
And I want to say one more thing. I do appreciate the guy from the city of Temple. When I told him they got a Cougars boxing where Johnny's Cleaners used to be, there's an alley right there. And a guy had moved that 66-gallon trash can, put it way down the alley so I couldn't get to it. He thought I didn't see him, but I'm standing on my porch. He looking all around. So I just got on my cellular phone and I called him. So he came out, and he went and asked him, you could see the difference in the grass. He said, why did you move the trash can? He said, because it rained. Well, he said, that don't have nothing to do because it's raining in the building. Why would you move the trash can? See, the trash can is on the alley, the big 66-gallon. No, why would he move it? And he asked him why did he move it.
Well, yeah, and that's a very good question.
Uh-huh.
We ask those all the time.
Yeah, and he moved the trash can from where I come across the alley to put my trash in. Why would you do that to me?
I don't know, but I tell you, you only signed up for those 2 things, and
Yes.
we can't talk about anything else. Other
Oh,
than
okay,
those
I'm
2
sorry.
things. No, that's no problem.
I'm learning.
No, you're good.
I'm learning, so. But anyway, that was the only 2 things that I wanted to, to address, and thank you very much.
Perfect. I appreciate
Okay.
you being here.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you. I know we've got a lot of folks from the Public Works Department here this evening to kick off Public Works Week. Would y'all like to come to the front? Y'all been busy today?
Yeah.
I know, I mean, it's like it was a rain joke, sorry. We appreciate everybody being here this evening, and I know that we're getting ready to kick off Public Works Week, and if I could read a proclamation to you, whereas the public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. Whereas without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, and administrators who are responsible for building, operating, and maintaining the public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection, these services could not be provided. Whereas the support of an understanding and informed community is vital to the efficient operation of public works programs, and the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated staff is materially influenced by the people. And whereas this year's theme is Public Works Always There, which showcases the pervasiveness of public works, and how communities depend on public works, and the men and women of the profession are always there and always ready. Now therefore I, Daniel A. Dunn, Mayor of the City of Temple, Texas, do hereby proclaim the week of May 15th through 21st, 2016 as Public Works Week in the City of Temple, Texas. And I urge all citizens to acquaint yourselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the valuable contributions these public works professionals make every day to our health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. In testimony whereof I witness my hand and the seal of the City of Temple, Texas, this the 19th day of May, 2016. And Nicole, I will give this to you.
Mayor, Council, just a moment to recognize the folks that we have here. Public Works every day, 24 hours a day. We're out there on the ground providing services in all kinds of weather. And these folks have worked really, really hard day in, day out. So we appreciate the community support. We appreciate the mayor and council support for all the things that we can do on behalf of our citizens every day. And I think we've got a little token of appreciation for each of y'all.
Great.
And we appreciate y'all recognizing us for Public Works.
Absolutely. Do you mind letting everybody introduce themselves and what departments they work in?
I'm going to go ahead and let each person do it themselves.
Yeah, you don't have to do
I'm
it.
not gonna- I don't know
This
if
is a test.
I'm Kirk Skopak.
Yeah, it's on.
I'm Kirk Skopak, Interim Director of Fleet Services.
Kelvin Sears, Shop Foreman, Fleet Services.
Sharon Carlos, Project Manager, Engineering Department.
Damon Boniface, Utility Services.
Sylvester Tappan, Operation Manager, Solid Waste.
Kyle Melton, Commercial Foreman.
Cameron Smith, Fleet Services. Tyler Kirk, Fleet Services.
Michael Ruan, Fleet Services.
Heather Wilson Ellis, Public Works Administration. Dawn Orange, Recycling Coordinator for Solid Waste.
Absolutely. I think that every day we are reminded of how valuable our Public Works Department is, and you help out so many people, and you are so responsive in what each of you do that we're just incredibly thankful, and we couldn't be a successful city without you. We have our stuff now.
Thanks. While they're handing out the bags, I did want to thank all we had two
That was a baby thing.
So we very much appreciate the partnerships that we have in our community, and if we can be of service anytime, we'll have to come out and provide some educational opportunities as well.
Thanks for the swag. Good stuff. All right. Next item is bond items. Item 7 is the first and final reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of one or more series of City of Temple, Texas limited tax notes, authorizing the levy of an ad valorem tax in support of these notes, approving the form of a paying agent registrar agreement and other agreements related to the sale and issuance of the notes, establishing procedures for selling and delivering one or more series of notes, and authorizing other matters related to the issuance of notes. Ms. Bernard.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This item is to begin the process of issuing limited tax notes. These notes will be used to purchase five commercial sanitation trucks for about $1.4 million, and that is net of grant funds, and also major building and security improvements for $555,000. This will include HVAC replacement, some interior, exterior renovations, and roof replacement. And all of this was included in the 2016 capital budget that was adopted in August of last year. Just a brief overview of the limited tax notes. Tonight, this item is to delegate authority to begin the issuance of these notes. The amount is not to exceed $2 million. The source of payback, even though they have a tax pledge, the payback for these notes will be general fund revenues and sanitation system revenues. Estimated annual debt service is a little over $300,000, and that is assuming a net interest cost of 2.42%. The term or years for the notes, this is short-term financing, cannot exceed 7 years. Schedule for pricing of these notes will be the week of June 27th, and actual delivery of the funds will be July 19th. Again, when I mentioned that this is delegation authority, and it will delegate the authority to the Director of Finance, or in my absence, the City Manager. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have related to this item. Typically, we have our bond counsel here and financial advisor, but they weren't able to make it tonight, but can address any other questions you have related to these items.
That's only questions. This item is scheduled for a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. All right, there being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of item 7.
Make a motion for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington.
Aye.
Councilmember Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Next item is the consent agenda. All items listed under this section are considered to be routine by the City Council and may be enacted by one motion. If discussion is desired by the council, any item may be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any council member and considered separately. Council, this is items 8A through 8W. Are there any items that you wish to remove? If not, I will entertain a motion on item 8.
Motion for approval as read.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington.
Aye.
Councilmember Morales.
Aye.
Mayor Dunn.
Aye. Item 9, a first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a conditional use permit to install a proposed 115-foot stealth monopole for Verizon Wireless at the Mueller Building site on a tract of land of .0258 acres situated in the S. Botsford Survey, abstract number 118, Bell County, Texas, located at 7050 North General Bruce Drive. Ms. Flowerly.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. And on the screen, I have an aerial of the location of where this particular conditional use permit is requested for. You'll see you'll have I-35 and then Pegasus Drive. There's a little pincushion that actually shows where this particular cellular tower or stealth monopole is requested. It's in the back portion of the Mueller building that is on I-35. And this is a close-up, as you can see in the aerial. This is the Mueller building here, and then this little hatch area here is where the applicant is proposing a monopole for his request. And the property is an existing light industrial district. It's also in the I-35 overlay industrial subdistrict. And that portion of the UDC does allow freestanding monopoles in the I-35 corridor. And so the request is in compliance with the UDC. Also, just to give you a little background information, as I mentioned, that this property is zoned light industrial district, and it is located in the I-35 corridor industrial district. The applicants are unable to co-locate in this area and propose a 115-foot stealth monopole to resemble a flagpole without a flag. And the applicants, because they're not able to co-locate, they have submitted a letter regarding their inability to co-locate, and that is allowed through the UDC, allows them to submit a letter of that form. The Unified Development Code, Section 5.4.3, does allow the Director of Planning to consider freestanding stealth wireless service facilities in the I-35 Interstate Corridor subdistrict. And as I mentioned, they are allowed in this portion of I-35. But the reason that the applicants, even though it's allowed by right, the reason the applicants are asking for this CUP is because of the distance requirement. They're allowed to have it by right in this area as long as they're 1,000 feet away from the nearest residential uses. And in this case, they're approximately 345. Actually, I think we have a slide that shows that they're about 350 from the nearest use. And so this is the land use map in this area. And this is suburban commercial, and so a cellular tower is compliant with suburban commercial uses. And surrounding streets, Pegasus Drive is a collector, so that is appropriate for this type of request. We have water in the area, and some may have wondered why I have the utility map up, and it's because there is landscaping proposed for this to buffer around the perimeter of the area adjacent to the street, and it just shows that they do have the ability to water their vegetation. I have some pictures of the site, and as you can see, there is presently a fenced-in area in the back of the Mueller building where this proposed monopole will be. And then you can see some pictures to the north that is existing residential use just to the adjacent of this property. And then this is a picture of the east where you can see the back of the Mueller building, and then further on past the building you can see a picture of their sign along I-35. And then to the south is undeveloped agricultural land and undeveloped land that is owned by the Mueller company. And then to the west is agricultural residential property, rural residential property on the west of Pegasus Drive. And so on the screen, I have a portion of the site plan, and as you can see in this picture, you can see that the entrance into the back part of the Mueller site, the entrance from Pegasus Road, and then this is the area where I showed you that the fencing area is. Presently, the property has existing trees in that area, and so the plan proposes removing those trees and replacing them with 6 more trees that are going to be on the outside of that area to screen along the street. And this site plan also does show that it does propose a self-closing gate, and then of course it has the cabinet area and then the placement of the proposed monopole inside. To the right of the screen, you can see a blow up of that section where it has a little bit more visibility. And then I have another exhibit, and you can see in the lower left corner the actual rendering of what the proposed monopole will look like, and as well as a rendering of the proposed wood fence area, privacy fence area, and they propose to have some 3 strands of barbed wire around the top of it, the top of the fence. UDC Section 5.4.5, subtowers or cell towers are subject to the following standards, and those include boundary and setbacks, security, screening, fence, landscaping, co-location, and the applicant has met all these areas except for the distance that I mentioned, and they have that's why they're here for the CUP. And so the requested CUP is compliant with the items I have on the screen, the future land use plan, the surrounding uses and zoning, public and private facilities that are available in the thoroughfare plan. And we sent out 3 notices. We only received 1 back in agreement, which is shown on the screen in A, and that was from the applicant. So, staff is recommending approval of the applicant's requested conditional use permit to install a proposed 115-foot stealth monopole for Verizon Wireless at 7050 North General Bruce Drive, subject to the site plan. And at its May 2nd, 2016 meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval of the requested CUP in agreement with staff recommendation. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those for you. And the applicant is also here, and he wants to do a PowerPoint also.
Counselor, are there any questions? And at this time, I'll open the public hearing.
Question.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is it typical, typical may not be the right word, but there's not a problem building, erecting that pole so close to Pegasus? No, in the past, whenever we've approved a monopole, there was a requirement for a 300-foot buffer, I think, from the base of the pole, you know, no residential buildings.
Right.
But is it not a concern to build so close to that road?
No, there's no mention of in our code about building close to a road. It's basically just residential areas.
Can't land on houses, but passing cars might be okay.
Well, that's a good point, but unfortunately, we don't have any mention of roadways in our code.
Pretty good shot.
I know. Pretty unlucky guy.
You are, never mind. At this time, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mayor Dunn, Council, my name is Vince Hebinger. I was here representing the owners and Verizon Wireless here last year when we were doing some code amendments with Brian, and we thought this one was coming down the pipeline because we have a capacity issue. It's not that we don't have voice everywhere in Temple. What it is basically an overloaded system because of the apps and the multiple things we're running on the phones as well. Don't want to go too detailed into location because Tammy already did that, but if you could see, I mean, we're looking for something in between 2 sites to reevaluate or reload or backhaul the existing structures, facilities. If we went south, we'd be close to the residential on the other side, so we tried to pick a bullseye spot in the middle. That on the south, you can see the portion of that residential on that side, and we're 3 times the distance from the residential to the north. The demand maps are really key. The yellow, I guess the green and the dark blue are really where the high demand locations are. You can see that spot in there. And right up to the north in this Doppler-looking radar map, it's a site called Troy. It's a little bit higher and it's a little bit more massive, but we have to try to get between what is to the north and what is to the south. You see a little bit of that on the south edge to relieve the overload on both capacity sites. Obviously, zoning comes into play, property owners come into play, environmental, regulatory, all that stuff. So we try to pick something in the middle. We couldn't get that. We looked for any structures that we could co-locate on. We couldn't get that either. That's what happens when you turn on what we call Verizon Mueller. It helps I-35, it helps your download speeds, it helps you your multiple apps, your weather alerts, your Amber Alerts, those things that are always constantly running on your phone to get to you quicker. There's Troy. The red line is capacity. We're obviously way overloaded right now, so we're trying to get some relief within this system in building it. Residential 350 to the north we talked about. A location that Tammy talked about. This is a great illustration, and I apologize if I showed this to you last year, but that's a stealth tower on the left next to a typical tower. And you can see how indiscreet this really is. People outside this room probably drive by that and wouldn't even know what it is, so it kind of blends in more than anything else we can do. Even if you put a flag on it, it's less noticeable without the flag. That's where the antennas are. The advantage is that it looks fairly nice. The disadvantage is really kind of a single carrier, because you see those 4 type of situations where you can put your antennas in. They're going from 3 to 12 now on a tower application. So they'll try to keep 2 reserved for co-location, but they may end up using 3 of those. So there is disadvantages to the stealth, but it helps the community in their I-35 overlay. There's the canisters that go over top of them and bolted. Mayor Pro Tem mentioned something about the right-of-way. We have fall zones in some other communities. These things are over-designed, wind load speeds. They're also designed to wilt. I don't know how to explain it other than say wilt and not fall like a tree. We lost one years ago in Rita in Orange, Texas, because a metal building wrapped around it and brought it down, and the pictures showed that the whole tower fell within its compound area, which was 50 by 50. So when they do fail, they do fall within their area. They don't fall like a tree. Most of the other utilities, and if we have a catastrophe like that, most people won't be on the streets as well. Utilities are designed for 30, 45 mile an hour wind speed, so I think they're reasonably safe to not fall. I think the setbacks are really generally put into play within municipalities for a value type situation. That's what it's going to look like in the end. Do you have any questions? I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Great. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? All right. There being no one else wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed on item 9. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of item 9.
The motion for approval as presented.
Second. A motion and a second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 10, a first reading and a public hearing. Consider adopting an ordinance authorizing the abandonment and conveyance of a 146.78 feet of a 20-foot wide alley located between Lot 6, Block 1, Blacks Edition, and Lot 6, Block 2, Blacks Edition, City of Temple, Bell County, Texas.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This aerial shows the subject alley, highlighted in yellow here. To give you some reference to where it's located, West Barton Avenue is to the north, and North 31st Street is to the west. This is Chick-fil-A here, and the high school is up back over here. This is a survey of the adjacent property, but it does give us the length of the alley, which is 146.78 feet. So the applicant has requested an alley abandonment and conveyance. The applicant owns the property bounding the west side and the north end of the subject property. TriStar Self-Storage is located to the east of the alley. They have submitted a letter stating that they don't have any interest in acquiring the alley. And then to the south, it terminates at another public alley that runs parallel to West Adams Avenue. So currently, the alley is vacant, undeveloped, and vegetated. Staff did contact public service providers, including the Public Works. They've stated that the alley is not needed for public service or public safety. There were no objections from the private utility providers because there's no existing facilities or utilities in the alley. And so because there's no facilities or utilities in the alley, the city can convey the alley without reserving any utility or drainage easements. There is fiscal impact. If approved, the applicant will be required to purchase the alley for $1,000 as recommended by a third-party broker's opinion. And just to touch on a related property, this is the property abutting to the west of the alley. It's being developed now, and there was a item on the consent agenda related to a right-of-way donation, which is for this property here, which includes installation of a sidewalk. And they did receive a a strategic investment zone grant, and that includes landscaping and facade improvements. So staff is recommending approval of the abandonment because the alley contains no utilities and is not needed for other public services or access. And if approved, the applicant shall submit a survey which will be attached to the ordinance, and the applicant is aware of this condition. So now we can move into questions and discussions. Thank you.
Council, any questions? There being no questions, this item is scheduled for a public hearing. If anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Bobby Spradley, at 4 South First Street in Temple. Did a great job. I mean, it's pretty cut and dry as to what I'm trying to do. I'm just mainly here in case somebody has any questions. We're good.
Thanks, sir. The building looks good. Anyone else wishing to speak? All right, there being no one wishing to speak, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Council, your pleasure on the first reading of item 10.
Motion to approve item 10 is read.
Second.
Motion to second, Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington?
Aye.
Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Item 11, first reading and a public hearing, consider adopting an ordinance authorizing a rezoning from agricultural to light industrial, and to consider and recommend action on a conditional use permit to allow for landfill use in the LI zone on 283.73 acre tract of land recently annexed into the City of Temple by ordinance number 2015-4733, located to the south of Little Flock Road and to the west of Bob White Road. Ms. Redmond.
Thank you, Mayor. So the applicant is the City of Temple Public Works Department. The aerial on this slide shows the vicinity of where the subject property is located. This here is the loop, and East Avenue H, which turns into Little Flock Road, is to the north of the subject property. To the west of the subject property is the existing landfill, which received its conditional use permit in 1998. And so this is considered an expansion of what is already existing with the existing landfill. The subject property is approximately 283 acres. In October of 2015, this was annexed into the city, and so all of the subject property is owned by the city. And again, just to reiterate, we're here to hear two cases tonight, a rezoning from agricultural to light industrial, and also to hear a case for a conditional use permit for a landfill use in the light industrial zone. This is an aerial of the area just a little closer up and a little clearer. Staff did want to point out that there is a creek that runs along the north part of the subject property, and also a portion of the south property, there is a creek as well. Both of these areas are located in the floodplain, so they do provide a natural buffer as far as vegetation of where the fill boundary for the landfill is located, which the fill boundary you can see is designated by this red line. And then to touch on some of the surrounding uses, you can tell towards the north there are some residential uses here, and there's one over here and here and here as well. You can see that it's mostly farmland with some residential uses. So the Unified Development Code, Section 5.1, use tables, you can see in the light industrial zone, landfill use does require a conditional use permit. This graphic depicts what's existing and what's proposed as far as zoning. You can see here the subject property is zoned agricultural. The adjacent property to the west is the existing landfill, and it's zoned light industrial with a CUP. And what's proposed is to rezone the property from agricultural to light industrial with the CUP. And to touch on some of the surrounding zoning, to the north, east, and south, properties are located in the extraterritorial jurisdiction, the ETJ, and so they're outside the city limits, and so they're not subject to zoning standards. And then as stated before, the property to the west is light industrial. And then just before we get into some of the requirements with the UDC, staff did want to just mention the Texas Commission of Environmental Quality, which is what really regulates the landfill from an operational perspective. And so they cover from everything from hours of operation, control of windblown solid waste, air criteria, and landfill cover. And this is not a conclusive list. There are more more things that they regulate at the state level. So here are some site photos. This is basically on Bob White Road on the central east boundary, looking south through the property. And here, this is standing on Little Flock Road at the northwest corner of the property, looking south into the property as well. The site photo on the left is looking east down Little Flock Road. The subject property is on the south side of Little Flock Road. On the north side of Little Flock Road, there are residential uses, which I pointed out in the aerial. And then the site photo on the right is off of Little Flock Road, looking south into the property. And as I mentioned with the aerial, there was a creek along the north side of the property. And so this vegetation in the back is where that creek is located. And so the fill boundary is located behind that creek. This is the future land use map. You can see that the subject property is designated as agricultural rural. This is a default designation. When land is annexed into the city, it's automatically designated as agricultural rural. You can see to the north and east, those properties are also designated as agricultural rural, and where the existing landfill is designated as industrial. This is a slide that speaks to the thoroughfare plan. You can see Little Flock Road is designated as a major arterial, and Bob White Road is designated as a collector. This is a map of the utilities. You can see that there are no utilities under the existing or the proposed landfill, and there are none planned. Staff did send 21 notices to property owners within the 200 buffer. You can see that the 200-foot buffer is delineated by this red line that surrounds the subject property. 9 letters were returned for denial. 5 were from the same property owner who owns 5 properties within the buffer area. And per state regulations, staff did post the notice in the newspaper on April 7th. So you can see the highlighted properties in orange are the properties that the letters were returned from. So during staff discussion, staff wanted to highlight a few topics of discussion. There are no proposed structures for the project. Staff would like to retain as many trees as practical along the perimeter of the boundary. And again, just to touch on the state regulations and what they regulate for operational nuisances. So this is section 3.5.4, review criteria for a CUP. You've all seen this before, and it was in your staff report. So just to sum this up, in determining whether to approve with conditions, or deny a CUP, the council must consider the following criteria. That's compatibility with the property and the surrounding properties, adequate access roads, adequate nuisance prevention, and adequate nuisance prevention measures. And just to highlight another important section of the code, section 3.5.5 states that the council may impose additional conditions necessary to protect the public interest and welfare of the community. So staff is recommending approval of the rezoning and the CUP with the following conditions. These are similar conditions from the 1998 CUP. However, they have been tweaked to be applicable to this case. So they must conform to the light industrial standards, compliance with all state and applicable state and federal regulations, develop a tree buffering plan to preserve some of the perimeter canopy trees that will help to mitigate negative visual appearance. An expansion beyond this 283 acres would include an additional CUP to prevent excessive noise, dirt, litter, and odors on the establishment and the surrounding areas. The CUP runs with the land and was not affected by the change of property ownership. And the City Council may revoke, suspend, or modify the CUP if they find evidence of a violation of the permit. And at their April 18th meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 8-0 to approve per staff's recommendation. So now we can move into questions and comments. Thank you.
Council, any questions or comments? If I could just make one comment before we open the public hearing. This has not been something that we just dreamed up last night, that we decided to expand the landfill. This has been probably a 6-year project that involved seeing the need for it, acquiring the property for it, and then of course last year, as Ms. Redmond stated, we did annex the property into the city limits. I know that there has been there have been news articles about it. It's been something that we certainly as a city have not tried to hide. It's been something that's part of our long-range planning, and although that we do sell we do sell the rights to other communities to use this, it is a very good source of income for the city, and it is part of our yearly budget every year. And as Ms. Redmond also said, this is looking at the zoning and the CUP, and understand that there are other permits and requirements by the state that this is in the process of going through. And with that, I'll open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on this matter may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. I'm Milton Flick. I'm a lawyer. I live in Houston, but my family has been in Bell County since 1881. I've got 2 great-grandparents and 2 grandparents buried.
Mr. Flick, would you mind giving your address for the record?
3827 Kiamisha in Missouri City, Texas.
Thank you.
My family and I own 490-some-odd acres. We bought it before this 98 CUP was granted for the landfill to come in. We've picked it up over several parcels, but we now have 490-some-odd acres. We're not in here to get in and out. We've had that property for more than 30 years. We intend to stay. We intend to be good citizens, and we intend to work with the city. But the city is going too far and prematurely. If I could ask Ms. Redmond to give us the first picture with the creeks up here. In Houston, we're very sensitive to floodplain, and indeed there are 2 creeks that affect that property. We have Little Elm Creek to the north, and we have tributary number 4, if I may reach to this.
Sure.
This little creek on the bottom is tributary number 4, and up at the top we have Little Elm Creek right there. Ed Sufal, who's here today, will tell you that tributary 4 today was the highest he's ever seen it. And Ed Sufal's been here since the 1950s. He went to high school, I believe, in the 50s here. And he lives just to the east of me. And my property fronts on Bob White right in here and then fans out up to Little Elm Creek and comes down here, runs somewhere in here. I can't get my bearing. But there are 5 houses up here, one of which is my house, and Billy Mitchell lives up here, and we have 2 houses to my south and 1 to the north. There's a cluster of 5 houses right there. They're all right across the street. The problem is that you've got a 75-year life on these landfills, and you're trying to decide today what to do. Now, we've got global warming, we've got rising seas, we've got methane being now realized as the most potentially dangerous greenhouse gas. You now require your landfill operator to catch it, and you didn't do that before one of these recent modifications to your ordinance. The methane generated by the landfill, you can't get away with it. It's going to generate methane, and they're going to require more and more policing of it. And you've got a tiger by the tail when you have a mile by a mile worth of garbage. You've already got 270, 80 acres. Now you're going to add 280. That's right at 600 acres. 640 acres is a mile by a mile. You're going to have a huge landfill out there generating methane gas. You're not immune from floods. We're now seeing 100-year floodplains come every 10 years in Houston. So that landfill may not be as safe as y'all think. Here's where I think we should go. Go slower, go smaller. You don't need to approve 282 acres. You've already got a landfill. Before you destroy the land on the edges, work closest to the existing landfill. Don't just let them have carte blanche as to where they're going to go. Keep them contained. And by the time you get around to filling up the eastern portion and the central portion, you might discover recycling is going to come in and save a lot of this. The recycling push is going to materialize. It's going to go up exponentially. We're not going to keep doing landfills like this in 75 years. There will be a stop. But I believe that it's up to the city to rein it in sooner and not just to give a 282-acre parcel the kiss of death. Now, you've also, when you annexed it, put me in your ETJ, my entire place. So I'm subject to the city's actions, but I get no city benefits. You've isolated me from the city, and it's just too big, too soon. You don't have to go with a 75-year plan today. Ms. Redmond's report says she can't even determine the impact of the diminution in value to the neighboring property. And we all know that. I don't mean to criticize her. Nobody knows what the land values are going to do 20 years out, except they're going to go down. And so there are many things that you can't address as you are required to under 3.5.4. You're required to give considerations to about 6 or 7 items, A through G, and you don't have any evidence on it. No one can give you evidence as to what the impact on the value is going to be, which I submit underscores the real problem. You're going too far, too fast, too soon, too broad of a brush. I ask you to break it down and control a small portion. Actually, you don't have to do anything. You got 15 years to study on it. But if you insist that you need to do something, I submit that the smaller and the more contained it is, the better. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fluke. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hello, Mayor, City Council. Welcome, the new council guy, citizens and residents, the city entities. I want to say something about the landfill. A couple of years ago, I stood behind this desk and asked about what was the future of the landfill when it was at 16 to 14 years of life. Now, examine these pictures that I was showing here. The landfill don't look that big, but if you look at it at the view, it's a pretty good sized mountain of trash and debris that's been buried there. Like the gentleman said before that's up here, one thing I really like to see the city of Temple do to save our landfill, since we serve besides our neighbor communities and cities and other counties with our landfill, I think it's time for us to start deciding to build a recycling plant, or start trying to decide what to do with some of the refuge that goes into our garbage dump or landfill, whatever you want to call it. The gentleman made a good point about that landfill spilling out methane gas. A lot of places now are starting to cover up the mountains and the debris fields to catch the methane gas that leaks throughout the land to the air, which causes the global warming. It would be a good idea if we could cap that off. We just got a brand new power plant, not, what, a mile away from that place, that we could catch that methane gas and send to. The second point was about the recycling. There's a lot of stuff that we are recycling here. I stand here behind this box and called y'all recycling brown, not green. And I still stand here today, call it brown. But I'll tell y'all folks something. It's a lot easier to make gold out of brown than it is out of green. And we got a gold mine there, but people don't realize it just because it's trash and garbage. It's one of the biggest resources that we have that's not natural. It's man-made resources. And we got to deal with these plans before the global warming takes effect, which it might be, might not. But 75 years, council, that's a long time. And our youth and our young folks are going to be the ones that's going to be benefiting for y'all's decisions today and tomorrow of what to do with the landfill. I wish y'all would consider of creating some jobs and protecting Mother Earth from all the stuff that we have here. I think this is a good time to start looking at what procedures we can start taking to invest in our landfill for our communities and for our state, our government, and our earth. Like the gentleman said, recycling is a new generation we're going to start looking at, because landfills like this, there will be a thing of the past. With council and citizens and entities of Temple, I wish we all consider to start a recycling project, a plant. We don't have to start real fast, like we say. We got to do it slow and figure out what is recyclable and which is not. And that leads to our schools and people teaching our youth. Our youth needs to learn.
Mr. Hebner, if you don't mind wrapping it up,
okay,
that would be great.
I want y'all to build a recycling plant there and trap the natural gases to benefit Temple and the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak? Yes, sir, Mr. Sufall.
Thank you all. I'm Ed Sufall. I basically operate all of the Flick property that they have there. Well, my son does. I've got it retired, kind of like I retired from my business at the John Deere place and stuff like that. But we operate that property over there, and I've lived out east of Temple all my life and stuff like that. Used to, I could see the hotel, the buildings. Now all I see is a mountain from our house. Same way Franklin is just to the west of me. So we're looking at a mountain now. We used to look at the city. So it's, I know we have to have the landfills, we have to have all of that. But what has happened is we're kind of neglected in our business over there we're collecting all this money from this sewer and getting extra so the taxes don't go up and stuff like that, but we still don't have We've been in the city limits in our business here since many a year, paid tax, yet we can't get sewer. And we've got Tractor Supply there, we've got a bunch of people down there, and it cost us tremendous amount of money to maintain our sewer system and build sewer systems and things like that. So y'all need to take a look at this kind of it ties in with the extra money that you're getting over here, from that, is give us in business there that we have, our property owners and stuff like that, provide us with sewer. And that's been I've addressed that situation before, and I've seen no plans for y'all to put sewer to us at the John Deere place over there, Mr. Wall and them at their place over there, and other businesses that are popping up in that area. We have provided our own sewer. And anytime you got to put in sewer, you're talking $20,000+ to try to comply. And now we also own the old Pioneer Club. We can't lease it or anything without spending that much money to put in the sewer system, so we could lease it. So that's, appreciate if y'all take that up, at least get a sewer down there. And like I say, with Mr. Fick's property and stuff like that over there, and I'm just to the east of that, that's gonna affect my property that I own, in our values and things like that in the future. Maybe so, maybe not, don't know. We don't know that yet, so I thank y'all and appreciate being able to say something about it.
Thank you, Mr. Sufol.
Thank you.
Sir. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Franklin Turner again, and address all of you and all you folks. I haven't got a lot to say, and at 82, I forget what I want to say to start with, but I just want to say one thing. I think it was Mr. Dunn that talked about the revenue that the city generates from this landfill. That's pretty good, but there's total disrespect for the people that have land east of that, and I think Temple is a town I'm proud of. I've been in Temple since '56. I'm very proud of Temple. But I feel like the people that led Temple years ago had a little different perspective than the city has now. And I know that we all have a job to do, and you have to do the best job you can. But I think we need to, people like Mayor Perry and the Salmons and the Wilsons, Mr. Ralph and Dr. Ralph and everyone, their idea was to, and they were really sincere about trying to do something for East Temple, like Mr. Wilson put the Boys Club in the east side of Temple. There's been a lot of talk and lots of words in the Temple paper about the east side of Temple, but all it is just smoke screens and words. There's nothing being done. And I know Ms. Morales is from the east, or represents the east side, I think. But we need to think about what we're doing over there and why we're so set on getting a few dollars, collecting a few dollars, making waste management a lot greater and a lot bigger. They're the biggest company in the country now. And I've been tempted to buy some stock in waste management. It's recommended. But I think we need to look at, let's look at what's really happening in Temple. Let's be the great city we are and continue to be the great city, and not just sell ourselves down the drain for a few bucks. One thing I did want to mention, you talked about the floodplain. Aside from this, there's a part that I'm interested in is Daly Branch, which Mr. Flick referred to as something I forget, but it's called Daly Branch, but the opposite of Little Elm. Every time we have a big, not every time, but many times when we have a big rain, the Dozier plant, we have a spill. There'll probably be a spill in the paper in the next couple of days. But I think we need to really concentrate on that because that's coming right by the dump ground area and all that's running down, runs to my pasture. Them poor old cows got to drink all that sewage water and stuff like that. So let's think about it before we go wild on this landfill. Let's think about downsizing. Recycling is something we need to do for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? All right. If not, I'll declare the public hearing closed. Couple of comments. Several people asked about recycling, and you might not be familiar that in conjunction with the plans to expand the landfill several years ago, we started a curbside recycling program that's been very successful. We're also looking at commercial recycling so that we can extend the life of our landfill, and this isn't again, as I've said before, this isn't something that we've taken lightly, and we didn't think about this yesterday. Years have gone into planning this because it takes years after this before anything can actually get done. And to your point, we're rezoning this. We are rezoning this and asking for a conditional use permit. We don't actually permit the landfill. The TSEC does. And so the laws and methane, that's all state regulated. Now, we monitor it, but that is something that is state regulated, and that's not for us to decide up here. And you know, to be honest with you, every gentleman that you mentioned, sir, are people that I have held in the utmost respect and I have looked up to as mentors my entire life. And I had the opportunity to talk with several people that some of them are no longer with us before I became mayor. And unfortunately, this job, when you're sitting up here, not everything that we vote on is popular. It's not always the most desirable thing, but unfortunately, every leader that you mentioned has had to do something for this community to make sure that our life is extended and that we can plan ahead well enough to where all the people that were mentioned and all the people that were affected are dealt with, and that we have a safe and sanitary place to put refuse in the city of Temple. Now, all of the other things that were mentioned, recycling, education, those are things that we're doing, and we know how vitally important that is. But this isn't something that we just looked up and decided to do. And with that, I'll open it up to any other comments. But this is something that might not be the most attractive thing that we've voted on as a council, or the most desirable, but it's one of those things that when you sit up here, it's one of those necessities that you have to look at the continuation of the life of the community.
I see this as a long-term process. It's extending the landfill for another 75 years beyond the 15 years that we currently have. And I think that we owe that to the future generations of our community. We do accept refuge from other communities as a cost generator for the city of Temple. We are able to provide a better service to our residents because of having that additional revenue come in. I think that with the permitting process, and I don't know where we are on that and how long that will take to happen, but I don't see this area being used as a landfill for several years, and then even at that point, it's going to take a long, long time to build up to the area that we're talking about. So I don't think in the next few years you're going to see a lot of change in what you're seeing, and the long-term changes will be many, many years from now when we're all gone, I think. But having the place for future citizens of Temple to have to dispose of waste, I think, is going to be very, very valuable in the future.
I can agree with that, and I hope that recycling does get better than it is now in the future. I'm sure it will, because it's moving that direction, and hope we never have to use this whole area. So that's always a possibility there, but but I would like to see, like you said, our future generations have access to what they need without having to deal with this again in another 15 or 20 years.
I sit on the, I represent Temple on the Texas Commission for Environmental Quality in Austin, and I can assure everyone here that TCEQ is a very slow, deliberate agency, and some would say, well, every government agency is that way, but in this case, it's good because there is a long permitting process. There is a lot of control. There are a lot of policies in place to control the methane gas. There's a lot of policies in place to control runoff. There's a lot of policies in place to control litter blowing out of the landfill. So as a state agency, I know that TCEQ is very deliberate in being aware of the needs of the landowners around various landfills, and the city of Temple is the same way. This project was being worked on when I got on the council 3 years ago, and they've probably done I don't know how many years of work before that. So this city and this council and the folks that have been on the council in the past have also been very deliberate in the process. And just as the mayor said, this is simply rezoning. There's not going to be a vote tonight, and assuming it's approved, there's going to be earth moving machines out there in the morning. This will be a long time before any dirt's ever turned on this site anyway. So this is a slow process.
Anyone else? Not, I will entertain a motion on item 11.
Motion to approve item 11 is read.
Second.
Motion is second. Madam Secretary.
Mayor Pro Tem Cloud?
Aye.
Councilmember Davis?
Aye.
Councilmember Pilkington? Councilmember Morales?
Aye.
Mayor Dunn?
Aye. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This meeting is adjourned.